Nintendo is a company with a lot of history. Originally founded in 1889, the company would initially focus on Hanafuda playing cards, and various other lines of business throughout the decades, from instant rice, to a taxi service called Daya, to even making remote control vacuum cleaners. It wasn't until the 1960s that the company started dabbling in video electronics, working with Magnavox to provide a light gun controller for the Magnavox Odyssey, the first home video game console ever created. Throughout the 1970s, Nintendo would further dip their toe in the video game market, primarily in the arcade scene with Wild Gunman in 1974, and release its first home video game, the Color TV game, in 1977. The 1980s was the decade that Nintendo became what we all recognize them for today, starting with the release of the Game & Watch line of handhelds at the beginning of the decade. The company's success in the arcade market would reach new heights with Donkey Kong in 1981. The Famicom would be released in Japan in 1983, and with its debut in the United States in 1985 as the Nintendo Entertainment System, it would rapidly spread across the world, truly putting Nintendo on the map. From then on, Nintendo would be a big part of pop culture. I think it's safe to say that if you were born any time after 1980, Nintendo impacted your life in some way. And with each passing year, the odds of someone growing up with Nintendo only increased. Maybe your cousin owned a system and you'd play it over at their house, or maybe one of the neighborhood kids or a friend had a Nintendo 64. It would dominate conversations at the lunch tables at school or among your neighborhood group of friends, and in these conversations, something almost universal would happen. That one kid would mention the impossible. Did you know you can find Mew under a truck next to the SS Anne? My cousin unlocked Luigi in my copy of Super Mario 64, or any other prominent rumor of the time, and of course, any time you asked the kid to show you, they'd say they'd have to go home and couldn't have friends over, but at that age, you'd believe them. Games were mysterious back then. Entire worlds on a single cartridge or disc that let you exist in a world that wasn't your own. The possibilities were endless, and to be honest, I wouldn't trade away those hours of fruitlessly hunting down any of these rumors for anything. All of this leads us to the Nintendo Iceberg. For those new to Iceberg videos, let me give a quick explanation. An iceberg chart is an image with multiple layers. At the top, we've got the more common or well-known points, and as you make your way down the layers, the points become more obscure and usually focus on lesser-known facts or mysteries. It is tradition to sometimes put joke entries on the iceberg, some more common and some being inside jokes with their creator. Icebergs are usually created by a single individual, or sometimes multiple people working together to get as many points on the chart as possible, usually through Reddit or a Discord server. Naturally, this means that some points that are obscure to the creators may be common knowledge to others, and vice versa. So there are bound to be points on even the lowest layers of this iceberg that you may already know about, and maybe some at the top that you might not. So if a point seems out of place to you, that happens to everyone. With that out of the way, I think it's time we begin this deep dive. So grab a snack, get comfy. This is going to be a long video. Let's get started. Mew under the truck. This was probably the first schoolyard rumor I ever heard. I recall a friend of mine at school explaining that he found a truck outside the SS Anne, and another kid had mentioned that's where you find Mew, sparking a large conversation among 8-year-olds at the lunch table. That was the first time I had ever heard of the truck, or obtaining Mew, or anything like that. From what I can recall, I don't even think I'd beaten the game at this point, but apparently you had to do something in order to make the SS Anne stay in port, because once you got the HM move cut and disembarked the ship, it sails off, never to be seen again. This of course brought about many kids telling others to reset their hours of progress, otherwise they'd never get Mew. But luckily, I waited. Not because I didn't believe them necessarily, but because I had just grown attached to my team and didn't think it was worth it. Time would go on and this rumor would persist, though no one seemed to be able to show any proof of obtaining a Mew. That was until a neighbor of mine got a Game Shark and passed Mews around to the whole neighborhood. This was pretty early on before Game Sharks really caught on with the Game Boy, so we were able to flex our Mews and be the cool kids for a while, and agreed to keep it a secret on how we got them. Back to the rumor, it's safe to say that Mew under the truck was simply that, and due to the fact that this truck texture appeared nowhere else in the game, its uniqueness alone must have hinted at something, but in the end, it never did. In later games, Nintendo would acknowledge the truck, hiding a lava cookie near it in fire red and leaf green, as well as a daily revive in Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee. Mew Under the Truck was a highlight in the golden age of video game rumors, and among many others we'll be discussing as we continue down the iceberg. Minus World. The Minus World is a glitched area that can be accessed in the original Super Mario Bros. On the NES and Famicom. To perform the glitch, in World 1-2, at the very end of the stage, right before exiting the world with the pipe, you must backwards jump at a very specific angle, which will cause Mario to pass through the bricks at the top right of the screen. Enter the first pipe this way, and instead of it acting like a traditional warp zone taking you to World 4-1, the game instead takes you to World -1, or -1. In NES copies of the game, the Minus World is an endless water stage. As a matter of fact, it's a copy of World 7-2. However, upon reaching the pipe at the end, it simply puts you back at the beginning, leading to an infinite loop. If you're playing the Famicom version, however, the Minus World is much more interesting. There are actually 3 Minus stages. The first one is a clone of World 1-3, however, it's underwater, allowing Mario to swim, and there are sprites of Princess Peach and Bowser scattered about. The next stage, -2, is nothing special. It's just stage 7-3. No cool sprites, no being underwater, nothing. The final stage, -3, is a clone of 4-4 with flying bloopers that you can actually jump on, which is unique since bloopers normally only appear in water levels where Mario is unable to jump on them. The stage's color palette is also different, using the underground colors as opposed to World 4-4's use of the castle color palette. Upon completing this final stage, the game goes back to the title screen. Oddly enough, in the Japanese version, if you start a new game after this glitch, it'll assume you beat the game and start you in the New Game Plus hard mode, where Goombas are replaced with buzzy beetles. There's a lot more to the Minus Worlds, mainly in the Japanese version. As a matter of fact, there are 256 hidden worlds with varying degrees of crazy things happening in them. You can find YouTube videos documenting these crazy worlds, so if you're interested, there's a playlist by YouTube user Clydeker with hundreds of videos of these unique worlds, so check them out. Luigi and Super Mario 64. Super Mario 64 is home to many strange things. Personally, I feel it's the first game that ever gave me that feeling of complete explorative control, and every time I play it, it really puts me back in that mindset that I had as a kid. People often question my strange gameplay or why I'm so bad at Super Mario 64 in the clips I use for my gameplay, and to be honest, it's actually intentional. I just enjoy doing stupid things in the game because something about it is just so fun, and was something I'd often do in the game as a kid. Okay, I'm getting off track. Despite all the things we did in Super Mario 64, one rumor that popped up time and time again was finding Luigi. Whether it be being able to play as him, or simply seeing him in the game like Yoshi, the fact that he was missing was strange. He was in Super Mario Bros. 1, 2, and 3, Super Mario World, World 2. Really, he only seemed to be missing from a small selection of games, namely the Super Mario Land games on Game Boy. But I could see that as a reasonable exclusion, as the Game Boy is a much more single-player oriented system. For a new flagship Mario title on the next home console to not feature Luigi, he had to be in there somewhere. Throughout the late 90s and early 2000s, you could find endless internet posts of people explaining how to get Luigi. I remember reading them for hours. As a matter of fact, what I'm showing on screen is one of the pages I read a long time ago documenting different methods on how to unlock Luigi. This was on cheatcc.com. Anyway, unfortunately, there's no way to unlock Luigi. However, some interesting developments did come to light some years later. L is Real 2401. We'll get back to what I was saying in the last point, but some people think it relates to this. So, in Super Mario 64, if you go outside in the castle courtyard where the boos are, there's a fountain with a star statue. The statue has a plaque on it with text that's very difficult to read. Some believe it says Eternal Star, some see L is Real 2401, and no one ever tries to decipher the bottom text. Maybe because it's even smaller and therefore more illegible than the top, but still, I do wonder what the message is supposed to be. L is Real 2401 was a massive point of discussion back in the late 90s and early 2000s. You couldn't have a conversation about Super Mario 64 without it or Luigi being brought up in some way. Someone's brother or cousin or whatever always had Luigi unlocked, but never explained how, but to be honest, I always held out hope that it was real, and the main reason why was because for the longest time, a friend of mine told me that in Star Fox 64, in the multiplayer mode, you could run around on foot. I thought that was amazing and always wanted to see it, but no one who had the game ever had it in theirs. Time would pass by, me thinking this was just another rumor, until finally we go to his cousin's house, and he has this unlocked. Being able to run around on the ground with all 4 Star Fox members was incredibly cool, and that alone was what kept me from dismissing every gaming mystery that came my way. Now, the thing that makes 2401 a bit more legitimate is that in July of 2020, as part of an ongoing mass leak of Nintendo assets from the Super Nintendo to the GameCube era, it was revealed that Luigi's assets had been found within the files. Model textures, voice lines, it was all there. Exactly 24 years and 1 month after the release of Super Mario 64 on June 23, 1996, the prophecy of the star statue would be true. Or it's just a coincidence. Either way, this made a lot of people happy and ultimately was a fitting end to this legend, where most of these things end in the realization that it's all false or was nothing but a rumor. For once it actually came true. That doesn't mean that your cousin was actually playing as Luigi back in 1999, though, despite what they may have said. Triforce and Ocarina of Time. Another big one. In early footage of Ocarina of Time, clips were shown of Link seemingly obtaining the Triforce from a treasure chest. When the game would finally release, and gamers had a chance to experience all that this 3D version of Hyrule had to offer, many soon realized that they had yet to obtain the Triforce. Maybe there was something you had to do? I mean, it is the most iconic object in all of Zelda, maybe it's just really hard to find. This led to yet another Luigi effect where guides started sprouting up all over the internet giving tasks on how to obtain the Triforce, and all the benefits it would offer the player. Winning the race against the Running Man, unfreezing Zora's domain, and being able to shoot sword beams were among the many benefits obtaining the relic would grant the player. Some even took the menu screen where the medallions are located as proof that the Triforce is obtainable, because they're darkened out, kind of like the medallion placeholders were before unlocking them. But then again, the medallion slots are more concave and the Triforce area looks more convex. Well, anyway, this all came to a head in 1998 on a website called Hyrule: The Land of Zelda. This site hosted a forum where users can discuss all things Zelda, and that's where a user named the Triforce Guy would start spreading some of the early obtaining the Triforce rumors. However, it wasn't until the following year that another user named Ariana Almondos would make their own obtaining the Triforce rumor, only this time they had pictures to back it up. In 1999, the idea of editing in-game images to create a hoax wasn't something commonly done, so these images fooled many people, as they looked, well, official. Or almost. Despite the fact that these images got spread around and even posted to some early gaming news sites at the time who took the information as legitimate, it didn't take fans too long to notice something. The image of Link was mirrored. His sword was sheathed right-handed, though of course Link is left-handed. Now, this could be dismissed as the camera simply taking the picture mirrored. However, one of the images shows text on the screen, and that isn't mirrored, entirely shattering the story Ariana Almondos was attempting to pass off. So, yet another hoax, and unfortunately not one that led to something 24 years and 1 month later like Luigi did. So, no Triforce in Ocarina of Time. But, I mean, what do you expect? Link has never held all 3 pieces of the Triforce. The whole point is that it's kept separated. Link does have his third though, so at least the rumors were a third correct. Missing No. Missing No was a glitch of limitless value when it was spread around playgrounds back in the late 90s, mainly because of its effect that it would have on the game. This glitch was used by everyone back in the day for infinite rare candies, infinite master balls, and for those who cared, infinite nuggets for large sums of cash to buy vitamins for your Pokemon. Or you can just get infinite of the vitamins. The possibilities, again, were limitless. I remember first learning of this glitch and using it on my copy of Red version. Many people warned that encountering Missing No could corrupt your game or ruin it in some way, but I never had any issue. I think most of the trouble came if you tried to catch Missing No, which I never did, so it was all just fun with infinite items for me. To perform the glitch, simply talk to the man in Viridian City who teaches you how to catch Pokemon, and ask him to show you how. After his little tutorial, fly to Cinnabar Island and surf up and down the eastern coastline, and you'll encounter Missingno. Sometimes you'll even encounter some Safari Zone Pokemon, which, in my experience, have all been safe to catch. Upon encountering Missingno, you can either fight it or just run away, and whatever item you have in your 6th slot will be glitched. Mind you, this isn't actually giving you an infinite amount of items in that slot, it actually gives you 128 of that item, but since you can do the glitch as many times as you want, it might as well be infinite. Missingno is of course the subject of many creepypastas and stories, and there's a lot of information in regards to how the glitch works. YouTuber The J Wits has an old video that talks about Missingno in depth that's pretty good, so check that out if you're interested. Hell Valley Skytrees. It seems as if the Super Mario series can never get away from creepy stuff. From Unagi the Eel to killer attack pianos, though I'd say Super Mario Sunshine is the most tame of the main series 3D games, Super Mario Galaxy 2 just had to go and throw in something to make your mind wander. In both Shiverburn Galaxy and Grandmaster Galaxy, something can be seen watching you in the distance. Shiverburn Galaxy takes place in a canyon with lava at the bottom, and your goal is to maneuver through this canyon of obstacles and avoid the lava. But if you're to peer up at the canyon walls, you just may catch a glimpse of someone or something staring back at you from above. While the heat makes it hard to see for certain what these things are, there's definitely something up there. Who or what these figures are has been a mystery for players since the game came out, and to this day that mystery remains, as their place in the game as distant watchers is simply that, as they never interact with the player, and no reference to their existence is ever made. If you're wondering how they got the name Hell Valley Skytree, you may just be thinking that's something fans made up, because it sounds creepy. But no, a data miner, going by Tacos, went through the files of Super Mario Galaxy 2 and actually found the skybox model to be called Beyond Hell Valley Sky, and for the texture of the beings to be Hell Valley Skytree, so this was intentionally done by Nintendo. The mystery of why they were put in the game in the first place has remained to this day. Eternal Star. Despite the fact that there's a game board in Mario Party called Eternal Star, I think it's safe to say that this is what I had mentioned back in the point about Ella's Real 2401, and what the plaque says on the star statue. People seem to generally fall into two camps. It either says Ella's Real 2401, or it says Eternal Star. Now, I get the Eternal Star thing, it's definitely not out of the question, but the thing is, I still feel like I'm the only one out there who thinks the bottom text is just as important as the top, but no one even attempts to make out what the bottom text says, and I get it, it's incredibly hard to see, but I personally am hoping for another Giga Leak or something, and maybe the original uncompressed texture will be found. Hanging Luigi. In Luigi's Mansion, there's an interesting visual anomaly that can occur that has creeped out many gamers and spawned countless rumors, creepypastas, and hoaxes. Around halfway through the game, after the blackout happens, you can enter a dark room known as the telephone room that's illuminated only by your flashlight and the occasional flash of lightning. When you answer the middle phone in this room, a dialogue scene will start, positioning the camera at an angle directly behind Luigi. Next time the lightning flashes, watch for Luigi's shadow. As you can see, the shadow is being cast at an elevation higher than Luigi's standing position, almost as if it's hanging, suspended from the rafters above. This has sparked countless theories that Luigi is actually dead and arrived at the mansion in the afterlife, or that upon entering the mansion he went crazy and hanged himself, and the game you're playing is simply his crazed delusions beforehand, or something along those lines. Now, I'm no programmer, but my guess is that under normal circumstances, when walking around in the telephone room with the camera as it's meant to be, this shadow would appear normal due to the angle. But when the camera zooms in for the dialogue scene, the programmers didn't take into account the change of angle, but that's just my guess. Maybe lighting doesn't work like that on the GameCube, I'm really not sure. Or maybe Luigi really did pass on. Super Mario Galaxy DS. Super Mario Galaxy DS is an incredibly impressive hoax created by Pablo Belmonte in 2007, showing a very convincing trailer for an upcoming DS release of the popular Wii game. I remember seeing this when it came out and being just as fooled as everyone else. It looks incredibly believable. The amount of work put into replicating the game, implementing the DS's unique peripherals like its 2 screens, and even showing how the stylus would be used makes it feel exactly how Nintendo would present such a game. I'm not entirely sure what the first YouTube upload of the hoax was, but there is an upload from December of 2007 by user Enrique Astley that has well over 1.5 million views. That's most likely the original upload. I also really like the channel name. It's kind of like a nod to Rick Astley, but anyway, back to Pablo Belmonte. Pablo has since uploaded the original high-quality video to his own YouTube channel in his name, as of course the original was recorded off a camcorder to make it look like it was recorded in secret behind the scenes at Nintendo or something. In the description for his video, he claims that he made the video as a project for a design studies course, which consisted of creating a viral video that could generate 500,000 views in a short time, and to be honest, that sounds like a very difficult task. Funny enough, Pablo would score a B+ on this project. Not a bad grade by any means, but really? A B+ for something we're still talking about? That's pretty funny. Pablo Belmonte would be responsible for quite a few other high-profile Nintendo hoaxes, some of which we'll be talking about shortly, so,
more on that later.
Banjo-Kazooie Ice Key. The Ice Key is an unobtainable item in Banjo-Kazooie that perplexed gamers for years. Once you reach Freezeezy Peak, you'll eventually come across Woza and his cave. Once you gain access to this cave, you'll notice multiple walls of ice, one of which in a small hole that you can jump up to. From here, you can clearly see that there's a room, and within this room, a key, but at that moment, there's no way to advance. Most players would probably assume you come back here later with a way through and put it in the back of their minds, but upon completion of the game, you may recall that there was never a moment when you had to come back here to obtain the key. Even after 100% completion, this key was still unobtainable. So, what is this key for? Well, we'll get into that in the next point. Stop and Swap. Stop and Swap was a proposed technology by developer Rare that would be used in order to transfer data between Banjo-Kazooie and its sequel, Banjo-Tooie. Early versions of the Nintendo 64 console hardware allowed for data to be stored in the console for up to 10 seconds after a cartridge was removed, and Rare was considering using this 10-second window in order to transfer data from Banjo-Kazooie to its sequel. It was found, however, that later iterations of the Nintendo 64 console hardware had changed, and only the early versions of the console had this 10-second window, and more recent hardware had this window reduced to merely 1 second. Certainly not enough time to safely swap cartridges, so the idea was dropped, leaving the Ice Key and a few other items unobtainable. After the earliest attempts were made to glitch through the ice wall to obtain the Ice Key, gamers noticed that in the pause screen, there was now a new menu that could be brought up called Stop and Swap that showed the Ice Key along with 6 eggs above it, and now a new mystery was found. What are these eggs? Well, like the Ice Key, they have no use in Banjo-Kazooie, as again, they're meant to be used in the sequel. In Banjo-Kazooie, each of the eggs requires you to enter a cheat in the sandcastle in order to make the egg spawn, and each of the cheats is a riddle that hints at the location of the egg. I think most people agree that the idea was that you'd play Banjo-Tooie, and you would come to a point where you would be given one of these cheat riddles to input into your Banjo-Kazooie game, and upon locating the eggs, you'd stop and swap them into Banjo-Tooie to unlock something. Due to Stop and Swap being abandoned, Banjo-Tooie simply changed the methods in which you'd unlock things in the game that originally used the Stop and Swap items. Banjo-Kazooie and Banjo-Tooie would eventually make their way to Xbox Live Arcade, and luckily, thanks to the integration of network game saves, Stop and Swap was able to make a return in a much more fluid way. So long, Gay Bowser. In Super Mario 64, if you swing Bowser around and toss him, Mario would say, "So long, Bowser." Due to the often heavy compression of Nintendo 64 sound files, not to mention the sound effects of the game and music being played at the same time, many gamers thought they heard Mario say, "So long, gay Bowser."
So long, gay Bowser. So long, gay Bowser. So long, gay Bowser.
From what I've noticed, Mario only seems to ever say this line when throwing Bowser at maximum velocity, as I've never been able to trigger him saying it with any lighter throws. I remember a lot of people also thinking he was saying, "So long, King Bowser," but when listening to the uncompressed raw audio of the voice line, it sounds like the end of the word long and the beginning of the word Bowser kind of flows strangely to sound like there's an extra word in the middle, even though there isn't. At least, I don't think there is.
So long, gay Bowser. So long, gay Bowser. So long, gay Bowser.
What's even more bizarre is that Nintendo would actually go out of their way to remove this voice line from Super Mario 3D All-Stars on the Switch, and change it so that Mario simply says bye-bye, which, from my research, is unique to the Switch version. This bye-bye line was originally introduced in the DS remake of Super Mario 64. Nintendo hasn't said why this line was removed, of course, and there doesn't seem to be any real reason for it, so I suppose for now it'll remain a mystery. Banjo 3E. Banjo 3E was a rumored sequel to Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie, and was even referenced at the end of Banjo-Tooie as a bit of a joke, though reportedly, Rare wasn't considering making a third Banjo game at the time, but that didn't stop gamers from talking about and spreading rumors among friends that they had heard about a third game, or that their cousin went to Japan and was able to play it, or other ridiculous stories. It didn't help that at Space World 2000, when the GameCube was announced, Nintendo showed a tech demo of Banjo and Kazooie running through a canyon while being chased, which Rare made for Nintendo as nothing more than a proof of concept for what the GameCube was capable of. But this, along with that little nod to Banjo 3E at the end of Tooie, kept the thought of a potential sequel at the front of people's minds throughout the GameCube era, though they'd be left disappointed. The only sequels fans of the series would receive would be Banjo-Kazooie Grunty's Revenge on the Game Boy Advance, which was moderately received, and Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts, which was generally poorly received. Maybe someday we'll get that 3E. Play as Master Hand in Melee. Ever since Super Smash Bros. On the Nintendo 64, gamers have come up with countless rumors and hoaxes to unlock various characters from a variety of media, from anime characters like Goku to movie characters like Darth Vader. Yeah, seriously, there were guides out there to unlock practically any character from fiction. One character from within the game was also heavily speculated to be playable, that of course being the final boss, Master Hand. Master Hand, of course, has a unique move list and isn't even fought like a normal enemy, so playing as him would kind of be changing the rules of the game, but that didn't stop people from trying. In the first Smash game on Nintendo 64, you can really only play as Master Hand through a cheating device like a Game Shark. However, in Melee, there's a way you can do it that requires nothing more than the original game. Through a glitch involving the controller being in port 3, you can trick the game into advancing to the stage select screen without a character being chosen, and when the level loads, the game loads the first character ID in the game's code, which just so happens to be Master Hand. Odds are, if it was any other character, it would just default to them, but luckily it's Master Hand, and that allows us to play as him. Strangely enough, his attacks are mapped to the D-pad instead of using normal button inputs. If you want to try the glitch yourself, it's honestly not that difficult to pull off, and easy to set up, so give it a try. Ocarina of Time Sky Temple. The Sky Temple was one of the early prominent rumors of Ocarina of Time, and word of it would spread, among many other ridiculous rumors, like playing as Sheik, obtaining sword beams, or any numerous locations that simply didn't exist, but upon reaching would grant you the Triforce and much more. It's really quite amazing how many rumors existed for Ocarina of Time alone. I can't think of any other game that has spawned so many rumors except maybe Pokemon, but anyway, we're getting off track. The Sky Temple was usually tied directly to the rumors about obtaining the Triforce, in that the Sky Temple was where it was located. Though there are many methods that people would post online detailing how to reach the Sky Temple, the one I recall personally hearing about was that you had to kill enough Skullchilds in Hyrule Field, taking advantage of the mechanic that every time you killed a handful of Skullchild, a larger one would spawn. As you'd continue defeating Skullchilds, an even larger one would continue to spawn indefinitely as you go on, only resetting the growth size after night turned to day. Most guides, of course, would just say it's very difficult to kill enough to trigger the temple to spawn, but keep trying, basically saying it's not possible and have fun wasting time. Even killing Skullchilds the most fast and effective way isn't enough to make the Skullchild grow large enough to even crash the game, which is possible if you use a GameShark code to pause the day and night cycle. So, yet another classic hoax with no truth behind it at all. Super Mario Galaxy 2 in 3D All-Stars. Super Mario 3D All-Stars was announced for the Nintendo Switch in 2020 and was advertised to have 3 games on it: Super Mario 64, Super Mario Sunshine, and Super Mario Galaxy. Many Mario fans were excited about the idea of having all 3 of these games on a modern console in a more relevant resolution, and with the added bonus of portability, specifically 64 and Sunshine, as these games had only been playable on their original hardware. It was shortly after the announcement, however, that people started noticing something was missing. Why isn't Super Mario Galaxy 2 on the collection? It's part of the 3D game series, and is the last 3D game released in the Wii era. Leaving it off this collection seems like a poor choice by Nintendo, because now it's kind of just left alone. Outside the 3DS games, which I personally don't really think count as part of the 3D mainline games, if Super Mario Galaxy 2 comes out, it'll either be by itself, and with that, not worth giving a physical release, or they'll re-release Super Mario 3D All-Stars down the line and add Super Mario Galaxy 2, making the original 3D All-Stars obsolete, which I also think is a bad idea. I think in general this was just a very poor move on Nintendo's part. Some fans think it'll eventually be released as DLC, which I guess is fine. I just feel that 3D All-Stars will forever be incomplete as a definitive collection, all because they left this game off. It's the only one they needed to add, and they simply dropped the ball. Holding buttons increases capture chance. Oh man, this one still gets me to this day. Okay, so ever since the beginning of Pokemon, there have always been rumors that if you held a button or combination of buttons down when capturing a Pokemon, it'll increase the odds of capturing the Pokemon. I even recall there being a guide that actually says a tip that if you hold some certain buttons, it will indeed help catch a wild Pokemon. My personal buttons that I hold down to ensure the capture of a Pokemon is down and right on the D-pad, A and B. Yeah, I do this every time, even to this day. If I don't do it, I feel like I'm cheating myself out of increased odds. I've done this ever since Red and Blue. I actually feel like I'm doing something wrong if I don't do it. That's how ingrained in my mind it is. But ultimately, this does nothing to increase the chances of securing a Pokemon. Mew 3. Mew 3 was a playground myth that goes along with a set of other Pokemon of questionable existence, those being called the Pokegods. We have a point coming up in a bit about the Pokegods, so I'll briefly discuss Mew 3 here, then pick it up further once we get to that point. Now, Mew 3 had its origins in Pokemon Legend from the very beginning. Of course, in Gen 1, Mewtwo was by far the most powerful Pokemon in the game, so his status among fans was already favorable. However, with that brought about those seeking something even stronger, and thus, the Mew 3 rumor was born. I can see how this myth came about. You simply notice Mewtwo being the strongest Pokemon, then start questioning, well, is there anything stronger? All it takes then is one kid saying they found Mew 3, or their cousin's friend showed them Mew 3 on their game to spark endless debate. For research on this point, I actually found an old website called cooltrainer.org/BPU, which contains many of these Pokegod cheats, as well as many others like accessing new cities and much more. According to this guide, to obtain Mew 3, you must play the Poke Flute next to Mewtwo 33 times and wait for the screen to flash. Then fight Mewtwo and it will be Mew 3. Another guide on the site says you must find the guy with glasses. They're most likely to be in the Rocket Game Corner hideout. Use the item finder to find the glasses and give them to him. He will fly you to the Pokegod Island. There is only one PC here. Next to the PC is a guide that you trade with to get Mew 3. Yeah, these guides were full of ridiculous things like this. Sonic and Tails in Melee. Upon completing the roster for Super Smash Bros. Melee, you may look at it and think something is still missing. Beneath Falco and Young Link, there looks to be 2 squares that could easily fit 2 more character slots, and for a game like Super Smash Bros., that's a dangerous thing for the developers to have done. Anytime there's an opportunity for fans to speculate on hidden characters, especially back in the early 2000s, they were going to do it, and 2 characters that fans wanted for a long time were Sonic and Tails, or at the very least, Sonic. Well, our good friends over at Electronic Gaming Monthly thought they'd get in the April Fool's spirit, and in the April 2002 issue, put a little article in with some Melee secrets, including one that explains how to play as Sonic and Tails. If you can score 20 KOs in Cruel Melee, they'll challenge you, and if you win, you unlock them. What I really love about this is how nonchalantly they throw this in among other well-known facts. It didn't take long for gamers to attempt this, and many, after beating the frustrating challenge, were ultimately met with nothing. Some, angry at the wasted time, messaged EGM, and for those who could provide proof of their achievement, EGM would send them a copy of Sonic Adventure 2 Battle for the GameCube. Honestly, I'd say that's pretty worth it. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle is an awesome game, and if I got a free game for doing a challenge in a video game, I'd think that's pretty cool. And for those who really wanted Sonic, he'd be available as a playable character in the next Smash game, and every Smash game since. No sign of Tails yet, though. Oh well. Rayman in Smash 4. Rayman has always been a popular contender for a slot in the Super Smash Bros. Lineup. Back in 2015, an incredibly convincing leak of what appeared to be Rayman's reveal card, as well as Rayman on the character selection screen, popped up, and the Smash community went crazy over it. A decent majority of fans actually believed this leak to be true, as did I personally. The fake leak happened on February 14th, 2015, and absolutely took off. Gaming news publications talked about it, Reddit posts were everywhere, YouTubers were talking about it. Everyone basically accepted that Rayman was basically confirmed. As part of the research for this point, I watched the old Game Explain video that they uploaded on the day the leak happened, and it's funny hearing how convinced everyone was, and I was no different. The following day, however, a video posted on the YouTube channel Curiomatic would reveal that Omni Jakala, known online as Artsy Omni, was the one who created the leak, and showed exactly how he did it, and honestly, it's incredibly impressive. To this day, Rayman still hasn't appeared as a playable character in any Smash game, and now that Ultimate's roster is completed, we'll have to wait to see if he can find his way into the next game. Dam Secret Island in GoldenEye. In the very first mission of GoldenEye, players noticed a very peculiar landmass off in the distance, just barely visible through the light fog. Like many mysteries of the day, this had its fair share of convoluted steps involved to unlock the island, or at the very least, a means of reaching it. One of the most common methods people often would spread to unlock the island is to beat every mission on 00 Agent, including the Aztec and Egyptian missions, as well as unlock every cheat code, which itself is a very difficult task. After completing these tasks, go back to the dam mission and kill the guards until one of them drops a key. This will operate a boat that's now at the dock area, that you can now take over to the island. This, of course, is just a playground rumor, and really, the only possible way to reach the island would be with a Game Shark. Upon reaching the island, you'll find a gun tower, a small building, and no items to speak of. Duncan Botwood, a developer at Rare, stated that the island was indeed once planned to be part of the mission, but was scrapped midway through development. The Grinch Leak. The Grinch Leak was a high-profile false leak of a potential character roster for the upcoming Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. This leak, first appearing on October 12, 2018, convinced many people, including myself, because of a character that I badly wanted to appear in Smash, and still do to this day. Oh, and if you're curious why it's called the Grinch leak, it's because the original image from the Grinch leak came from a screenshot of a Snapchat of what appeared to be a banner of all the characters expected to appear in the game. And at the bottom right of the image, for whatever reason, is a 3D render of the Grinch from the 2018 Grinch movie. Not because anyone thought the Grinch was going to be playable in Smash. The new characters in the image included Banjo and Kazooie, the chorus kids from Rhythm Heaven, Gino from Super Mario RPG, Isaac from Golden Sun, Ken from Street Fighter, Mach Rider from the NES game Mach Rider, and Shadow from the Sonic series. Really, the main thing that invalidated this leak was simply time. It was eventually revealed that Isaac and Shadow would be assist trophies, and the Rhythm Kids and Mach Rider would only appear in the game as spirits. Luckily, we still got Ken and Banjo, though. I personally have always wanted Shadow in the game, though, even as a Sonic Echo Fighter. I mean, come on. One more Sonic rep would be great, and if they don't want to do a unique character like Knuckles or Tails, just do Shadow. Give them all the same moves as Sonic if they want to be lazy with it, and that's it. Done. They already have his model in the game anyway for his assist trophy. I honestly can't imagine it being a whole lot of work for something that would please a lot of people, or at least me. But anyway, that's just my opinion. On to the next. You are Mr. Gay. This one is completely ridiculous, but basically, gamers noticed something interesting about the Super Mario Galaxy logo that's on the box art. If you look at it, the letters U and R in Super, the letters M and R in Mario, and the letters G, A, and Y in Galaxy all have a bright star on the bottom corner of these letters, and only these letters. Ignoring all letters without this leaves the message, "You are Mr. Gay." Now, that alone is just a coincidence, I'm sure, if not for what happened in the sequel. And we'll get to that when it comes up later down the iceberg, so,
More on that later.
Shadow in Brawl. On January 31st, 2008, Super Smash Bros. Brawl was released for the Wii, and like its predecessors, countless guides popped up detailing how to unlock various characters that ultimately weren't actually in the game. One of the popular characters for speculation, even before the game came out, was Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow is a fairly popular character, and getting a second Sonic rep would make sense, at least now. But I think back in Brawl, simply getting Sonic in the game alone was enough at the time. And besides, Shadow is in the game, as an assist trophy, and unfortunately, that's where he's stayed to this very day, as he's still an assist trophy in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. One guide that's still on YouTube that was uploaded back in 2009 says that if you play as Sonic 735 times and win every single match without losing, you'll unlock Shadow. The video then of course shows a fairly blurry image of Shadow with Pit and Sonic and Mario on the Delfino Plaza stage, but I mean, it's just his trophy model, of course. I find it really funny that these kinds of rumors persisted into the Wii era. This kind of thing can never exist now. No one could attempt making a guide or rumor that Master Chief or Crash Bandicoot are in Smash Ultimate. Do kids these days go around making playground rumors about Fortnite skins that don't exist? Is that a thing? Honestly, I'd be kind of amazed if such rumors exist in this day and age. Maybe they still do it at like elementary school level, but once you have access to the internet, you can find out anything, and it seems like even second graders have full internet access these days. Justin Bailey. Metroid is an incredible franchise. Originally released in Japan for the Famicom Disk System in 1986 and making its way to North America in 1987, and finally Europe in 1988, the series created the groundwork for the Metroidvania style of games that Hollow Knight, Ori, and many other titles would replicate, and its influence would definitely continue, as the Metroidvania style of progression is incredibly satisfying. Samus, as we all know, is a woman, but back in the early days of the series, there was really no way to know, as Samus of course always wore her power suit, so to anyone looking at the game at face value, they probably assumed it was just some guy in the power suit. If you beat the game in 3 to 5 hours, you'll see Samus with her helmet off. However, with the 8-bit graphics of the NES, you may miss it or not really think anything of it. If you beat the game in less than 3 hours, only then would it be revealed that Samus is, in fact, female. And if you beat the game in under 1 hour, you get to see 8-bit Samus in a bikini. Awesome. These tasks, however, take some real skill at the game, and for those who are unable to do so, but still want to see Samus without her suit, can luckily turn to a password. If you go to the password screen and type in Justin Bailey, then input dashes for the rest of the characters, you'll start the game as Samus without her power suit, and on top of that with green hair, which is awesome. There's a code that lets you play as the end screen Samus with the reddish-brown hair, but Justin Bailey is unique in that she has the green hair and is only seen this way when that code is used. Now, that's all fine and good, but every time this code comes up, inevitably the question gets asked. Just who is Justin Bailey anyway? Most assume them to be someone who worked at Nintendo, but this isn't the case. Other rumors have spawned, but ultimately no one has been able to find any connection to someone named Justin Bailey and Metroid. According to a website called MetroidDatabase.com, users there had attempted to find or debunk any existence of someone named Justin Bailey, and their research has brought them to the conclusion that the entire thing is a complete coincidence. Here's the quote: "The Justin Bailey password is a total fluke. If you play around with Metroid's password system, you can come up with other names and words that work as passwords. The Justin Bailey code is one which was found early on and happened to work pretty well, so it became widely reported." Now, I just gotta say, I personally still think there's more to this. There's no way it's just a fluke. The result of the password is way too unique, giving Samus a custom palette swap and almost every weapon in the game. It's not like there are codes to change Samus's armor color or any other color combinations. To my knowledge, only Justin Bailey does this, and the fact that the letters just so happen to be a name can't just be a coincidence. We have 12 characters to work with, and they just so happen to spell out a common first and last name? I don't buy it. Then again, even George Sinfield, senior editor at Nintendo Power during the early 90s himself, even says that the password was pure coincidence, so I really don't know. Really, the only thing throwing me off is the fact that, at least to my knowledge, it's the only password that gives Samus a special color palette, and that alone is just so unique that it makes me question how no other codes are like this. As it turns out, that's where the rumor is at to this day. No one has ever stepped forward to claim to be the original Justin Bailey who entered that password for the first time, and no one knows why it works the way it does. All bonds. Once again, we got another amazing April Fool's Day rumor from Electronic Gaming Monthly. Yep, just like teasing Sonic and Tails in Melee, they'd been putting fake rumors in their magazine for years before, to the point that it practically became a tradition. This rumor was that it was possible to unlock playable versions of the previous actors who had played James Bond before Pierce Brosnan, those being Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, Roger Moore, and even George Lazenby. The method they give to unlock the All Bonds cheat is as follows. First, you must play the stage Aztec, which is unlocked by beating every other stage in the game on the Secret Agent difficulty. On top of this, you must set the difficulty to 007, which is unlocked after beating every stage on 00 Agent, the hardest difficulty in the game, which is no easy task. The 007 difficulty allows you to customize how the enemies react in any given stage, giving you control over their accuracy, damage, health, and so on. You must set enemy health to 200%, enemy damage to 100%, enemy accuracy to 100%, and enemy reaction speed to 100%, and complete the Aztec stage in under 9 minutes. Now, anyone crazy enough to complete this feat would not have a good time afterwards, shortly learning that their hard work resulted in no Connery, no Dalton, no new Bonds whatsoever in their game. Now, you may think the story ends here. However, there's a bit more to this rumor. As a matter of fact, there was a hint right under the nose of everyone who owned GoldenEye on the Nintendo 64. If you open up the manual, you can find a picture of a game of multiplayer being played, and in that image you can see Sean Connery in his famous white suit with the red rose from the movie Goldfinger. So, what's the deal? Well, it wouldn't be until many years later in 2020 that Martin Hollis, the game director, would be interviewed and give some answers. As it turns out, Hollis recalls that during the time working on the game, he and his team had initially been told that they had free reign to use any and all James Bond characters, gadgets, weapons, basically anything from the franchise. The team immediately went ahead with working on adding Sean Connery, Timothy Dalton, and Roger Moore as playable characters to take their place right alongside the newest Bond, Pierce Brosnan, and decided to leave out George Lazenby, as you do. As development went on, however, company lawyers voiced their concern that while they do indeed have the license to use everything in the James Bond catalog, that may not necessarily include the likeness of the actors who portrayed Bond at different points, and not wanting to deal with potential legal trouble, decided to scrap the idea. Luckily, however, this was late enough in development that the models and textures used for the characters were left in the files, and thanks to some data miners at the Rare Witch Project forums, they were able to re-implement them into a ROM of the game and are now fully playable, so what was once a rumor is now reality. Bill's Secret Garden. In Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow, once you reach Route 25, north of Cerulean City, you'll come across Bill's house, which is a mandatory location you must visit in order to complete the game. Many players noticed, however, that if you position your view just before entering Bill's house, on the north side of his home, there's a small bit of path that you would normally be able to walk on. This path spawned countless rumors, with many circulating around the fact that this is where you could catch more EVs, more of the starter Pokemon, and sometimes even Pokemon a bit more rare than that. As usual, you'd need to complete some ridiculous steps, and Bill would reveal a secret door in his house that would allow you to enter his secret garden, where these Pokemon reside. The reason this pathway attracted so many people was that on both sides of this path behind Bill's house are cliffs that, as we all know, you can't walk on. But this walking path located directly behind Bill's house is the same type of texture used for the normal roads throughout the game. If only they extended the hill texture as to not leave this open area, countless kids would have been spared the agony of attempting impossible challenges that they had heard from kids on the playground. Some of the tasks include showing Bill a level 100 of each evolution, or as easy as getting your starter to level 100, with the most absurd being that you have to have caught every Pokemon and raised each one to level 100. Yes, that includes each individual form of each Pokemon too. So, one Pidgey at level 100, one Pidgeotto at level 100, and one Pidgeot at level 100. Completely ridiculous. Tasks this difficult, though, were often reserved for catching Pokemon that were beyond the normal variety. These kinds of tasks were often only for catching the rarest of the rare, the Pokegods.
More on that later.
Unobtainable Animal Crossing NES games. A really awesome feature in Animal Crossing on the GameCube was the inclusion of NES games that your character could collect and display in their home. Not only that, interacting with them would allow you to play the games in their entirety. There were actually a fair amount of games that you could obtain, however, some are more elusive than others, and some are actually entirely unobtainable by legitimate means, and it figures that the best ones would be those unobtainable games. The most common games are the ones you can get from Tom Nook's Lottery, Red the Salesman, or find buried by villagers, those being Balloon Fight, Clue Clue Land, Donkey Kong Jr. Math, Excite Bike, Golf, Pinball, and Tennis. If you use your Game Boy Advance and connect it to Animal Crossing, giving you access to the island, you can obtain Wario's Woods and Baseball. Through special passwords on the official Animal Crossing website, you could obtain Soccer, Donkey Kong Jr., Donkey Kong 3, and Punch-Out! And lastly, the rarest games that could only be obtained with a cheating device or through special e-reader cards are Mario Bros., Super Mario Bros., Ice Climber, and The Legend of Zelda, and these 4 games here are the topic of the point we're currently on. Super Mario Bros. Was only ever distributed in Japan in their version of Animal Crossing, called Animal Forest Plus. The Legend of Zelda, through the research I've done, has simply never been released in any way. It's not even listed on Nukipedia as an obtainable game, though with an action replay, you can add it to your collection. Waluigi in Super Mario 64 DS. The remake of Super Mario 64 on the Nintendo DS really went above and beyond in terms of what a remake can be. New playable characters, new mechanics, new levels, and an additional 30 new Power Stars to collect, bringing the grand total to 150. Among the new playable characters in the game, we've got Yoshi, Luigi, and Wario all working together to recover the Power Stars of the castle and defeat Bowser. With the inclusion of additional characters, rumors of course would sprout up about being able to obtain even more characters outside the additional 3, most notably Waluigi. I suppose since Mario and Luigi are now together, and Wario's in the game, why not Waluigi too? Well, numerous methods of unlocking Waluigi would surface, but one would stand among the rest as seemingly the most legitimate. We'll talk about it further in the next point. Purple prizes. The first major Waluigi hoax, as well as the most well-known, comes in the form of a mock magazine article that looks straight out of Electronic Gaming Monthly's April Fool's offerings. This article, dubbed Purple Prizes, doesn't really give a clear method on how to actually go about unlocking Waluigi, though it does show quite a few convincing screenshots of him in action, and to be honest, it all looks very legitimate. The article lists that Waluigi has higher jumping than any of the other playable characters, as well as gaining super speed after picking up a power flower. This entire article, however, was a hoax, and not even actually taken from a magazine, but meant to look like it was. The creator of the hoax, Andrew Brown, had even edited his DeviantArt upload of the image with a description saying that it was fake, but the damage had already been done, and the spread of the image meant that not many were seeing it on Andrew's original DeviantArt page, causing the rumor to make its rounds for years. Thanks to the fact that Andrew didn't disclose any methods of unlocking Waluigi, that gave players endless possibilities after believing the image to be legitimate, exhausting all methods they could think of, and in the end, there was no Waluigi to be found. A website called Nintendo World Report, where Andrew Brown worked at the time, actually features an article written by Andrew about how he went about creating the fake images, the spread of the hoax, and his reaction to it all at the time, and looking back years later. It's a pretty good read, so check it out. Yeah, I am, are you. Alright, so this one links us back to the whole "you are Mr. Gay" thing with the box art for Super Mario Galaxy. Now, hilariously enough, with the release of Super Mario Galaxy 2, fans noticed yet another coincidental pattern that just so happened to be almost like a response to the hidden message on the first game's cover, though it's a bit of a stretch. So, if you follow the pattern from the first letter to the last, you get U-R-M-I-A-Y. However, backwards, you get Y-A-I-M-R-U, which fans put together as Yeah, I Am, Are You. It's completely ridiculous, but kind of funny that it connects that way. Not really much more to it outside of that, though, so on to the next. Pallet Fields. Much like Bill's Secret Garden, there are certain spots throughout Kanto that are unreachable by normal gameplay means. This, of course, led to multiple rumors about accessing these spots and the type of Pokemon that could be found there. Yes, including the Pokegods, but we'll get to that. On both the east and west sides of Pallet Town, there are fields of grass, the same type that you'd normally walk in to catch Pokemon. Players noticed, however, that even upon beating the game, there's no way to access these fields of grass, leading many to believe that this would be a prime spot to catch the remaining starter Pokemon that you didn't get to choose at the beginning of the game. I assume the starters being located here was a popular theory for these spots, given that Professor Oak caught the starters, he resides in Pallet Town, and gamers were desperate for a way to obtain the other two starters. Some took this rumor a step further and said that you needed a secret 6th HM move containing Jump, which would allow you to jump over the barriers and enter the fields. These patches of grass, however, are actually programmed in such a way that no Pokemon can be encountered here, and the game actually crashes in some cases. Strangely enough, if you start from Route 1 and glitch yourself into the east side fields and keep walking right, you'll end up in a strange duplicate of Pallet Town just without any NPCs. Finding any information on this Ghost Town version of Pallet Town was actually kind of difficult, and I personally find it a lot more interesting than the Pallet Fields, but there you go. Noki Bay Book. While Super Mario Sunshine doesn't seem to have anywhere near as many oddities as its predecessor, it's still an incredible game, and not without its mysteries. Once you've made your way to the Noki Bay stage, select Stage 3, which is red coins in a bottle, and make your way down to the ruins resting in the sand at the bottom of the bottle. Within the small ruins, you'll find a door that you can't interact with in any way, which is very strange. If you position the camera just right, you can see beyond the door, and what is seen here has perplexed gamers for decades. A book, simply laying there in the small corridor with nothing else inside. As per usual, theories and hoaxes galore came flooding in. Some said you must collect all the coins in the stage in a set amount of time and the door will open, or you must collect all the shines in the game within a set amount of time and you'll get a key that opens the door, and the book will eventually lead you to another world, and so on. As it turns out, the book cannot be collected, and on top of that, it doesn't even have collision, simply being part of the ruins geometry. To this day, the reason for the book being here is a mystery. The fact that it's behind a door, not visible to players unless they specifically force the camera into a very specific angle, makes me believe that it had a purpose at some point in development. But to this day, there's yet to be any statement by Nintendo on the matter, and data mining has turned up nothing as well. Playable Toad in Melee. Yet another rumor of a secret character in Smash, we've got Toad. Toad has been a much wanted character in the community for quite some time, even during the early days of Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate. People have been wanting Toad in some way, shape, or form, and of course, back in the Melee days, this was no different. I remember when the method for unlocking Toad was going around, and the means to unlock him was actually something many of us would try to do upon beating Adventure Mode. Upon completion of the single-player game modes, you'd reach the end credits of the game, which features something of a mini-game of sorts where you can control a crosshair and shoot at the names, which would bring up further information in a subscreen. Part of the method to unlock Toad was that you needed to hit every single shootable object during the end credits, with a perfect score being 190 hits. After this, complete Adventure Mode again, and you would be challenged by Toad. Toad's spot on the roster would be next to Roy, leaving the square next to Pichu still open, leading many to believe there's yet another character to be discovered. This was all fabricated back in 2002 on a GeoCities site that I'm unable to locate. However, it made its rounds and many believed it to be true for quite some time. Ghost House Face. In Super Mario 3D Land, there's an obscure Easter egg that can be found at the end of World 4-4, which is a ghost house stage. This Easter egg comes in the form of a strange ghost-like entity, and is usually not seen by most players as it's right next to the flagpole, and there isn't really a reason to hang around next to the flagpole when you could just immediately go on to the next stage and continue the game. However, if you were to go next to the wrought iron fence and wait for about 30 seconds, slowly, a ghostly entity will materialize, then slowly fade away. Some believe the ghost is wearing a Shy Guy mask, though that's just a fine detail that isn't entirely agreed upon. What is agreed upon is that this is an incredibly strange occurrence, and according to some sources, isn't the only time this specter makes an appearance in Super Mario 3D Land. World 4-4 is simply its first appearance. As a matter of fact, this ghostly spirit appears in every Ghost House level, 4-4, Special 6-5, 6-6, and 8-4. For whatever reason, in Special 6-5 and World 8-4, this ghostly figure also appears at the beginning of these stages. Though hard to spot, the apparition slowly appears in the windows at the start of these two stages. There isn't much more known about why these ghosts are in the game, so their spooky presence will remain a mystery. Gygus is a fetus. Earthbound, also known as Mother 2 in Japan, is an interesting game and series that gained cult popularity in the late 90s and early 2000s, and now I'd consider to be more mainstream, at least in regards to people recognizing the characters and franchise, mostly thanks to Super Smash Bros. But even with Super Smash Bros. Giving the characters of the game a bit of recognition, there are still many who haven't played the game. But even so, I and many others who immerse themselves with video game myths and legends know about the Gygus fetus theory. As the story goes, Shigesato Itoi, the creator of Earthbound, based Gygus on a traumatic experience he had as a child. To simplify, a young Shigesato, while out at a movie theater, accidentally went into the wrong movie, which ended up being the horror film The Military Policeman and the Dismembered Beauty, and witnessed a horrific scene that traumatized him. That trauma working its way into the creation of the final encounter with Gygas, which also explains Gygas' creepy dialogue during the encounter, and the subliminal-esque fetus shape. To give more to the fetus rumor, upon the characters of the game going back in time to destroy Gygas, the player is transported to an astral cliffside, and within a cave is a strange, almost organ-looking mass that you and the party traverse before coming upon what many say resembles a uterus, and here is where you fight Gygas. During the fight is when you'll see Gygas' form, which is rather abstract in appearance, though a fetus's shape can definitely be made out. Many players believe that what's happening story-wise is that Ness and the team are sent back to before Gygas was born to kill him. I personally don't believe this to be the case, as in Earthbound Zero, also known as Mother in Japan, we know of Gygas' inception, and that he's raised on Earth by Maria and George, who are the great-grandparents of Ninten, who is the main character in Mother. In Earthbound, or Mother 2 in Japan, we see that Gygas is already in a state of ultimate power, meaning he's in a form beyond what he was at the end of Mother 1. To be fair though, connections between the first two Mother games are plentiful, but whether or not it's even a narrative sequel is questionable. Itoi himself said it's entirely up to the player whether or not the game is a sequel, but with the title screen of the game saying Gygas Strikes Back, that alone would put me on the side of it being a sequel. Gygas, at the end of Mother, is in a tangible form, an alien form. You sing a lullaby to defeat him, as it reminds him of his mother from Earth, Maria, and he retreats. He's not killed. Many people think during this time is when Gygas goes from being a tangible being to something that cannot be comprehended by humans, such as his form in Earthbound, where it even states that you're unable to even comprehend Gygas' attacks. As for the abortion theory, though, through what I just explained, I'm in the camp of it being false narratively, but visually intentional for the sake of style and symbolism. Super Mario 64 Rideable Yoshi. Yoshi's introduction to the Mario universe with the release of Super Mario World was met with unanimous praise, and the lovable dinosaur would go on to appear in many titles over the years, including every Super Mario crossover game since. One game, however, disappointed many with its blatant disrespect of Yoshi's place within the game. Similarly to Luigi in Super Mario 64, players spent their time in Peach's castle wondering if the green dino would ever make an appearance. Upon claiming all 120 stars and making your way outside the castle, you'd find that the cannon that was previously gated off is now available for you to launch yourself all about the entrance area of the castle. With this new means of propulsion, you can even get Mario up onto the roof, and there waiting for him would be our pal Yoshi. The meeting is bittersweet, however, as all he does is max out your lives and give you a special triple jump that negates fall damage, which personally I always found kinda hard to use anyway. Many players were upset that you couldn't ride Yoshi, given that was his prominent role in the last mainline Mario game that he was featured in. With this, many rumors and hoaxes were created detailing how you can ride Yoshi and take him with you throughout all the levels of the castle. This, of course, was all false. However, in recent years, many mods have been made to allow Mario to ride Yoshi and even use his double jump, but there's certainly no means of doing it on the normal unedited game. Peekaboo. Peekaboo was one of the early rumored Pokemon to exist in Red and Blue, and was said to be an evolution of Raichu with water and electric typing. Back during the early days of the internet, news from Japan about upcoming games was much less common and not translated immediately like it is today. Japan would get its first glimpse at Pokemon Gold and Silver at the 1997 Space World Trade Show, as well as receive Pokemon the First movie in July of 1998, almost a complete year before the movie would premiere in the West, giving Japanese audiences a peek at upcoming Pokemon, like Snubbull, or Budu for its Japanese name, as well as Meryl, the focus of this point on the Iceberg. On top of this, Gold and Silver versions would release in Japan in November of 1999, and not hit Western shores until 10 months later. All of these factors gave plenty of time for images of Meryl to appear, and be given the false, yet instantly iconic name, Peekaboo. During this period, endless rumors would spread about Peekaboo's origin, how to obtain him in Red and Blue, and so much more. I'd say the biggest fuel to the Peekaboo rumor was that an NPC on Cinnabar Island, when spoken to, would claim that his Raichu evolved. I'm sure early on, gamers thought this to be a mistake, which indeed it was. However, with the new Peekaboo rumors, many took this as a sign that yes, Peekaboo does in fact exist, and this NPC is hinting at that. It was insane, but you know what? I can totally understand how an NPC saying their Raichu evolved could be seen as a hint to people. I mean, it's an NPC in the official game, and despite that, we now know the line of dialogue was a mistake, but back then, why would we have any reason to doubt it? Oftentimes, to advance in a game, you'd talk to NPCs who would give hints. It's really just a coincidence that fueled this rumor even further. Worse yet, when news of the Pokemon the first movies released to the West finally started making its rounds and the premiere inched closer and closer, trading card company Topps got the license to make cards for the movie, basically just cards that showed a screenshot from the film with a description on the back. One of these cards featured a shot from Pikachu's Vacation, the short that played before the main feature. This short, of course, features Meryl and Snubbull in their first appearance, and whoever was tasked at making this card went out of their way to refer to Snubbull as Bururu, which, I mean, is fine, it's his Japanese name, as mentioned previously, and we didn't have his Western name yet, but this creator jumped the gun and called Meryl Peekaboo. Yes, this is on an official Pokemon product. If only the employee used Meryl's Japanese name, which, well, is Meryl. Then this whole thing could have been silenced by an official source, but nope, we got an official product calling Meryl Peekaboo. So for the next few weeks before the movie's release, the rumors continued, only to be put to rest at the premiere when we learned Meryl's true name. Peekaboo was a massive part of Pokemon Playground rumors back in the early days of the franchise, and yes, Peekaboo is one of the Pokegods. I promise, we're getting to that soon. We got a few more Pokemon points left before getting to the Pokegods, so
More on that later.
Swastika Dungeon. The original Legends of Zelda was released in 1986 for the Famicom Disk System, and in the West on the Nintendo Entertainment System in 1987. The game features 9 dungeons for you to explore, with each of these dungeons' map layouts having a unique and noticeable shape. The first dungeon being an eagle, the second being a crescent moon, the third being a manji symbol, the fourth being a snake, the fifth being a lizard, the sixth being a dragon, the seventh being a demon, the eighth being a lion, and the ninth, well, the ninth is just Death Mountain, but it kinda looks like a skull, so that's fitting, I guess. This specific point is referring to the shape of Dungeon 3. Now, in Japan, this shape that's notorious and familiar to many in the West means something entirely different. Despite the fact that the arms are facing in a counterclockwise direction, which does make a difference, many Westerners would see this shape and immediately believe it to be a symbol of hate. This shape actually has existed for thousands of years in many Eurasian cultures. The one most associated with Japan would be the Buddhist version of this symbol. The counterclockwise version of the symbol, which is the one the map is based on, symbolizes the night, as well as having deep connections to the goddess Kali in Hinduism, which too connects to Shintoism. For the sake of feeding curiosity, though unrelated to the dungeon, the clockwise version of the symbol represents prosperity and good luck in Hinduism, which again links it to Shintoism. Many online sources about video game rumors say that this type of swastika that this dungeon is based on is the one symbolizing good luck, but if that was the case, it'd be the clockwise facing version, not the counterclockwise facing version that we have in the final game. The one in the game, as I mentioned previously, simply represents night, and the goddess Kali, who is the goddess of death, time, and change in Hinduism, also known as Kishimojen or Karitemo in Shintoism. The symbol has countless other meanings in many other cultures throughout the world, but given that the game was developed in Japan, this would be their closest association with the symbol, and simply be misunderstood in the West. Not to mention the symbol isn't tilted 45 degrees on its side, but again, that's just a misinterpretation. We talked about a similar case with the symbol being used on a Pokemon card during my Wizards of the Coast Pokemon promo cards video. but by that point, Nintendo felt the need to remove the symbol to avoid any conflict. Just to throw in an extra bonus fact, all of the 9 dungeons in the original Legend of Zelda can connect to each other and fit in place. Kind of interesting. Now, before I move on, I'd just like to say, my research on Shintoism, Buddhism, and Hinduism in regards to the swastika are beyond surface level, so if I made any mistakes, please correct me in the comments. Learning history of any kind is something I very much love, and I'd like to keep facts straight as best I can, so if my short time of research brought me to any wrong information and I said something blatantly false, please correct me in the comments, I'd very much appreciate it. Now, on to the next. Yoshi and Luigi in Pokemon. Here we've got yet a couple more Pokemon myths. Let's start with the Yoshi one first. So, similar to the Electronic Gaming Monthly April Fool's Day rumors, Expert Gaming magazine would start a rumor in the April 1999 issue stating that you can get Yoshi in Pokemon Red and Blue. The process they give on how to do so is as follows. First off, you're going to need both red and blue versions, as well as 2 Game Boys, as trading is necessary. Both games would need 100% completed Pokedexes, save for Mew. Now, the red version must trade a Dratini to blue version. Now on blue version, you must evolve the Dratini up to the point that it evolves to Dragonite, then trade it back to red version. On red version, take the Dragonite to the location where you can find Mewtwo in the Unknown Dungeon and use a Firestone on the Dragonite. Doing so would reward the player with Yoshi instead, who is given the number 999 in the Pokédex. From my recollection, this was deemed a hoax pretty early on, and I don't know anyone who tried spreading this around or who thought it was legitimate, but I'm sure there was some people out there who did. Funny enough, the article in Expert Gamer magazine was done as a mailed-in tip type thing, with the name of the person who submitted it as J. Esther. You know, like Jester. It's kind of funny. Anyway, now on to Luigi. So this one was actually posted on the official Nintendo website in April of 1999 and gave instructions on how to unlock Luigi as a Pokemon in red and blue versions. The method provided is as follows. First, catch a Lickitung with an Ultra Ball. Using any other ball won't work. Then, take your new Lickitung to the spot where Snorlax was blocking the road east of Vermilion City. Now, turn your Game Boy upside down, and while still holding the Game Boy upside down, feed Lickitung a rare candy. If done correctly, Lickitung will start to evolve into Luigi. Yeah. What's really funny is that Luigi even has a unique plumber typing and can unlock numerous special attacks. The ones the article claims to have found so far are Wrench, Mustache Slap, Gas, Cower, and Family Reunion, which summons Mario and Yoshi for a group attack. Once again, I never heard anything about this being taken seriously by anyone, but again, I'm sure someone out there must have tried it. Brutus the Bulldog. Animal Crossing has become quite a big franchise, but I personally never got too deep into the series outside the first game on the GameCube, but for what I missed out in the sequels, I more than made up for in time I put into the original game. There were many rumors early on in Animal Crossing about being able to obtain certain items, or the NES games, or catching certain fish or bugs, but one rumor was that of a certain villager that can move into your town. The rumor goes that if you don't visit your town for a long period of time, a villager named Brutus the Bulldog would move into your village and have some interesting effects on your game. Reportedly, he would send the player mail containing binary code, and if you attempt to enter his house, your game will crash. Others have reported more destructive activities, such as Brutus cutting down every tree, forcing most of your villagers to move away, stealing things from your house, undoing add-ons to your home, and so on. While I personally had never heard of Brutus growing up, his legacy seems to live on, as there are many images and videos of him appearing in the more recent games in the Animal Crossing series. Beat the Running Man. Another classic Ocarina of Time rumor, and a strange addition from Nintendo in general, but I suppose not entirely out of character. In Ocarina of Time, there's a character known as the Running Man, who, as young Link, can be seen running around Hyrule Field. He's really only used for the Happy Mask Salesman questline, where you sell him the bunny hood, making him run around even faster. Another funny detail is that if you stand in his path, he'll run you off the road, sending Link flying out of the way. Once you're adult Link and you save the Carpenter brothers from Gerudo Fortress, the bridge connecting the canyon and Gerudo Valley will be complete, and the Running Man, who was previously hanging out in the tent, unable to get back out to Hyrule Field due to the bridge being broken, will challenge Link to a race, from the tent in Gerudo Valley to the entrance of Kokiri Forest. A timer appears when you start this challenge, and your goal is to get to Kokiri Forest as fast as you can. You can do whatever you'd like to get there, from using Epona to warp songs, though none of the warp songs are particularly helpful, but basically, you can use any means necessary to complete this goal. Just do it fast enough though, because the Running Man is quick. Upon completing this task for the first time, you may lose the race, so you try again, and again, and again. You get so good at running an optimized route, you have no idea what you're doing wrong. The Running Man always says he beat you by 1 second. There has to be some way to beat him, right? It's a challenge in the game. There's a timer. The game is actively tracking this event. Some rumor spreaders back in the day connected this event with the obtainable Triforce rumor, stating that only after obtaining the relic would you be able to beat the Running Man. In my personal experience, on top of that, you'd be given a 4th pair of boots that replace the hover boots that allow you to run faster, as well as use the hover ability without the loss of traction, called the Pegasus boots. I can't find any fake guides online about Pegasus boots though, so I'm pretty sure that was just made up by the kid who lived on the next street over from me. I can't remember his name, but I still remember him telling me that and thinking it was really cool. Being able to run around at bunny hood speed like in Majora's Mask with the added benefit of hovering, that would be awesome. But nope, ultimately this is an impossible challenge, and Nintendo put it in for no reason other than they can. Even the hero of time can't beat the Running Man. Nude Samus. A ridiculous rumor from the original Metroid that also made its way into Super Metroid was simply gamers trying to find a way to see Samus nude. Yeah. So, in the original game, as we talked about with the Justin Bailey point earlier, there are 5 different ending screens based on how long it took you to complete the game. The worst ending is Samus in full armor looking away from the screen if you took over 10 hours to beat the game. The next is Samus waving in full armor for taking over 5 hours. The neutral ending is Samus with her helmet off for beating the game in under 5 hours. The good ending is Samus wearing a one-piece leotard for beating the game in under 3 hours. And the best ending is Samus in a bikini for beating the game in under 1 hour. This, of course, would spawn countless rumors about seeing Samus wearing absolutely nothing if you beat the game in less than 30 minutes, which, I mean, I guess any female character in gaming can spawn rumors like this. Same thing happened with Tomb Raider in the mid-90s. Fire Temple Chants. This mystery in Ocarina of Time is one that many people still talk about to this day. Ocarina of Time had a few revisions made during its time on the Nintendo 64, known as 1.0, 1.1, and 1.2, each subsequent version released fixing bugs and, in some cases, changing assets and even music. In regards to the Fire Temple chanting, many sources falsely claim that the game was pulled from shelves shortly after Ocarina of Time's initial release, when concerned members of the Islamic community noticed that the chanting within the Fire Temple was that of a specific prayer from the Quran. Over the years, research has been conducted by multiple different parties, and it seems that this isn't the case at all, but it's easy to see why people would think this is true. The game Little Big Planet on the PlayStation 3 had a similar controversy that did result in the game being edited due to backlash. Anyway, here's the rundown of the Fire Temple chanting. Now, the strangest thing about the 3 versions of Ocarina of Time that I mentioned previously is that, based off the completion dates listed in the game's debug menu for all 3 versions, They were all completed prior to the release of Ocarina of Time in any territory. This is very interesting, as it shows that Nintendo themselves felt the need to change the music, among other things, before the release of the game. My question is, why did they just not send out the earlier versions to stores then, if they thought this would be a problem? My theory is that they possibly had too many copies of the game ready to ship and reflashing the ROMs wouldn't have been financially worth it, but really, who knows? So, this chanting sample used in the Fire Temple actually comes from a sampling CD called Voice Spectral, and features many samples that were quite heavily used in other Ocarina of Time tracks, not to mention many other games. The Nintendo 64 port of Cruisin' World used the voice sample as well in the Cairo Cruisin' stage. Here, have a listen. Another game for the original Xbox called Kakuto Choujin Back Alley Brutal also used this voice sample. Check it out. Ironically, Kakuto Choujin was pulled from shelves specifically because of the voice samples and was never re-released again, making it a moderately uncommon game. The old website and YouTube channel Game Trailers had a mini-series called Pop Fiction, in which they dive quite deep into the Fire Temple Chants mystery, so if you want an excellent deep dive into the topic, check that out. Lavender Town Syndrome. Lavender Town Syndrome is a creepypasta created sometime in 2010 by an unknown author. As the story goes, shortly after the release of Pokemon Red and Green in Japan in 1996, there was a peak in children between the ages of 7 and 12 falling deathly ill and, in some cases, even taking their own lives. It was eventually discovered that these children all had one thing in common: they had all reached Lavender Town in their games. After looking into it further, it was revealed that the music used for Lavender Town contained certain high-frequency tones that could only be heard by younger children, as their ears were still in a state of higher sensitivity. Reportedly, at least 200 children were said to have taken their own lives, either by hanging or jumping from great heights. In lighter cases, children reported extreme headaches, vomiting, convulsive seizures, and more. Nintendo was said to have gone out of their way to track down as many first-release copies of Pokemon Red and Green as possible to prevent this from happening again, and reportedly they were able to seize hundreds of thousands of copies, but inevitably, some simply couldn't be found and are still out there to this day. A video in 2010 showing the audio being ran through a spectrogram program shows that the audio looks normal until the very end, when a series of the Pokemon Unknown appear, spelling out the words "Leave now." Unknown, of course, wouldn't appear until the second generation of Pokemon games, leaving this mystery unsolved. Under Shy Guy's Mask. This is a short and simple one, as there's really no true answer. Yet. The Shy Guys are the lovable red-hooded enemies of the Mario universe, sporting said red hood with a belt, white mask, and blue shoes. Shy Guys actually first appeared in the 1987 video game Yume Kojo Doki Doki Panic, developed by Nintendo. This game would famously go on to be the base for the Western release of Super Mario Bros. 2, and the characters within Doki Doki Panic would be swapped with Mario characters, though many of the enemies would stay the same, bringing Shy Guy, Birdo, Bob-ombs, and more into the Mario universe. A common question, however, is what exactly do Shy Guys look like under the mask? To this day, that mystery remains alive, as it's really never shown to the player. In Mario Power Tennis on the GameCube, there's a cutscene in which Shy Guy's mask falls off, leaving Luigi looking shocked. However, the camera doesn't reveal what is behind the mask. With modern camera hacking tools, we can see that there is in fact no face. However, this could just be done intentionally, but not canonically in lore, as the player is never really meant to see Shy Guy from that angle during that scene. Some have speculated that Shy Guy is the mask itself, and that the body is simply being possessed by the mask it wears. In Super Mario Strikers Charge, the Shy Guy's mask is shown to change expressions and display emotion, so that leads me to personally be on the side of the mask itself being the shy guy, but until it's stated by Nintendo, it'll remain a mystery. Super Smash Bros. Universe. Back in 2011, before the release of Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS, a hoax was going around that the title for the next game would be Super Smash Bros. Universe, with the U in Universe symbolizing the game's launch on the Wii U console. This hoax took the form of a document that was said to be part of an internal Nintendo newsletter specifically for developers. Reportedly, the text on the document mentions the inclusion of more third-party characters and the removal of the tripping mechanic that was infamous in Super Smash Bros. Brawl, though I don't read or speak Japanese, so I can't verify that personally. This would of course eventually be revealed to be a hoax. However, there is a fan-made game called Super Smash Bros. Universe that features many characters that have yet to make an appearance in Smash, and likely never will, such as Rystar or Freddy of the Five Nights at Freddy's series, not to mention a handful of anime characters. Either way, it's a cool project and is still being updated to this day. Marty the Thwomp. Mario Kart 64 is a game that surprises me in how little rumors and hoaxes it's had over the years. One, however, that I have heard multiple times is of a certain Thwomp, locked away in a cell in the track Bowser's Castle. This Thwomp, affectionately given the nickname Marty by fans, is the focus of this point. Marty is green in color, which is strange, as most Thwomps are either blue or gray, but maybe it's just the lighting. Anyway, it was said that if you freed Marty the Thwomp, you'd be able to unlock him as a playable character. The method to do so is as follows. While playing as Bowser on the Bowser's Castle track, circle the giant Bowser statue counterclockwise 3 times, then drive the rest of the course backwards until you reach the statue again. This time, drive around the statue clockwise 3 times, then make your way back to Marty's cage. If done correctly, the cell will open and Marty will come out. This will also unlock him as a playable character. The original video that spawned this hoax demonstrating how to unlock Marty the Thwomp was uploaded on April 1st of 2007 by YouTube user Clay McElveen. The video honestly looks pretty convincing. I mean, about as convincing as a camcorder pointed at a CRT in a dark room can look, but convincing nonetheless. I'm not really sure the technical aspects of modding the game to raise the gate up as it does in the video, or how difficult any of this is to replicate, but still, for 2007, this was a great hoax, and one that a decent amount of people fell for before realizing it was uploaded on April Fool's Day. Super Hornio Brothers. Oh man, alright, so Super Hornio Brothers and its sequel, Super Hornio Brothers 2, were adult films made in 1993 parodying Super Mario Brothers, and stars Ron Jeremy as Squeegee Hornio, parodying Mario, and TT Boy as Ornio Hornio, parodying Luigi. The movies went through a fair bit of production issues before finally being completed, only for Nintendo themselves to purchase the rights to the films, in order to stop them from being distributed. That's right, Nintendo owns the rights to the Super Hornio Brothers movies. Totaka's song in Wii Sports. Totaka's song is generally an Easter egg song put into games composed by Kazumi Totaka and has been featured in numerous Nintendo games over the years, including Super Mario Land 2, Mario Paint, Yoshi's Story, Luigi's Mansion, various Animal Crossing games, and much more. This point specifically refers to the song's appearance in Wii Sports, which should be straightforward, except that whether the song actually appears in the game is still unknown. Many claim that if you get a rally going during a game of tennis, the noise of the ball hitting the racket plays the notes of Totaka's song in the same order, and when arranged to match the tune of the song rhythmically, will sound just like Totaka's song. What many believe is happening here is something called psychoacoustics, where you can make yourself hear something simply because your brain is trying to hear that, especially in regards to the small range of sound of the ball hitting the tennis racket, and the hollowness of the tone itself. You can line up the hits of the ball to the rhythm of the Super Mario theme, the Zelda theme, and so on, and odds are, your brain will make you hear it, so this fact is considered undetermined. Once again, the series Pop Fiction has a great video covering this in depth, so check that out if you're curious. Ben Drowned. 2009 to 2010 was really the golden age of creepypasta. Countless creepy stories would be created online before this time and since, but during this short window, we saw the likes of Slender Man, Smile Dog, The Russian Sleep Experiment, Abandoned by Disney, the previously mentioned Lavender Town Syndrome, Jeff the Killer. Not saying that they're all top quality, but they did really kick off a genre that many still talk about to this day. In 2010, yet another of these infamous creepypasta would be born, that being Ben Drowned. The creepypasta was created by Alex Hall, going under the alias Jaducible. Alex would initially post on 4chan's X board that he had gone yard sailing and came across an old man who sold him a copy of Majora's Mask. As the story goes on, it turns out that this copy of the game appears to be haunted by the spirit of a young child named Ben, who had died from drowning. Personally, I find the first half of the story to be the most interesting, as while crazy things are happening, it still feels almost like it could be real, and it stays pretty self-contained, with it simply being about Jaducible and his interactions with Ben. Later, the series would incorporate a cult known as the Moon Children, and it all starts getting a bit much, but luckily the story does have an ending, so if you'd like, go check out this infamous piece of creepypasta history, as it certainly left its mark on internet horror. The Wario Apparition. Wario has been a popular character in the Super Mario franchise ever since his introduction in Super Mario Land 2: 6 Golden Coins. In 1996, Nintendo hosted a panel at E3 with the tagline, "Focused on Fun." This panel was, of course, meant to highlight new and upcoming Nintendo consoles, games, and other video game-related Nintendo products. The beginning of the panel starts with a video being shown on a large screen. At first, the entrance to the stage Dire Dire Docks is shown from Super Mario 64, only for Wario's face to appear and start yelling at the audience, and telling them that Super Mario 64 is not, in any way, fun. Now, why this earns a spot on the Iceberg is because some players have reported entering the star door that leads to Dire Dire Docks, only for Wario's face to be staring at them, and proceeding to chase the player down, turning the doorway you just walked in from into an infinite hallway where you must escape Wario. Multiple reports state that this boss fight is winnable, while others have said that it always results in death, and can even crash your game and delete your save file. I have more to say about this, but I'll have to wait for a point coming up in a bit, so,
More on that later.
Super Mario 65. Super Mario 65 is a fan game created by Ninja Downloads for the Nintendo Wii, based off Super Mario 64 and its pseudo-remake Super Mario 64 DS, taking many elements of the latter and creating a new experience. There is such little information about this game online, but I'll do my best to give as precise information as possible. The game started development in 2011 and was said to star Waluigi as the initial playable character, and you'd be able to find Mario, Luigi, and Wario as you explore the stages, kinda like Super Mario 64 DS, with Waluigi taking Yoshi's place, I guess. The game also features Bowser Jr., as well as the 7 Koopalings as the primary villains alongside Bowser. The only playable levels confirmed before the game's cancellation were Bob-omb Battlefield and Whomp's Fortress. The project would eventually be cancelled due to Ninja Downloads reportedly losing interest in developing a Mario fan game. Unfortunately, that's about all the information I can find in regards to this game's development. Yoshi's Story: Purple Yoshi. Yoshi's Story, the sequel to Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, features a variety of different colored Yoshi that you can play as. As it seems to always go, rumors of other colored Yoshi sprung up like crazy. One of the most common of these rumored colors was purple, as during the opening cutscene for the game, a purple Yoshi can be seen. However, gamers who completed the game 100% would notice that only green, yellow, light blue, dark blue, pink, red, black, and white Yoshi are available to play. With the black and white Yoshi needing to be unlocked, this further led to speculation of numerous other colors of Yoshi, and purple was often the first on the list, since, as mentioned previously, it's present in the game's story. One of the most common methods to unlocking purple Yoshi is to collect every single heart coin in every single level of the game. This method has been tested by multiple sources online, and no purple Yoshi has ever been found. In conclusion, it seems as if the purple Yoshi was simply cut content, as early pre-release gameplay of the game shows this purple Yoshi as being playable, along with brown Yoshi. As a purple Yoshi main in Smash Ultimate, the fact that it was cut out of Yoshi's story kind of upsets me personally. But anyway, on to the next. Pokemon Creepy Black. Pokemon Creepy Black is a creepypasta that was written in 2010 and was one of the earliest examples of a video game-centered creepypasta, alongside Tails Doll and Ben Drowned, of course. The story centers around a bootleg Pokemon game based off of Red and Blue versions. In this bootleg copy, after choosing the starter Pokemon, the narrator notices something else in their party. A ghost, like the ones you see in Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town. The ghost only had one attack: Curse. Any Pokemon you encountered from either a trainer battle or the wild wouldn't be able to attack Ghost. Upon using Curse on a Pokemon, the screen would fade to black, then return to the battle screen. The trainer would have one less Pokeball slot in their party, implying the Pokemon died. After completing a battle, you have the option to either use Curse or Run. Curse would kill the trainer, and upon returning to the overworld, a gravestone would be in their place. As is the case with most creepypasta, this one's author is unknown, as most of these are published anonymously, and in terms of actual creepiness, it's fairly tame. It's not like the ghost sprite started haunting the narrator in real life, or trying to curse him, or bad things started happening in the real world. It was simply the narrator's experience with this bootleg cartridge, and that was it. Pretty straightforward. Geno in Brawl. Geno has always been a popular candidate to be added to the Super Smash Bros. Roster. If you don't know, Geno is a fan-favorite character originating from the Super Nintendo game Super Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. The game, despite being part of the Super Mario franchise and developed by Square, the developers of Final Fantasy, wasn't a big seller when it came out, and has since become something of a cult game with a very dedicated following. Fans of the game would petition for Geno's inclusion in Smash since the months leading up to Brawl, as well as Smash 4 and Smash Ultimate, but unfortunately, he has yet to see a proper place on the roster. Masahiro Sakurai did in fact consider Geno's inclusion in Brawl, and even felt that he could easily fit into the game. However, this fell through for unknown reasons, most likely being that Square Enix actually owns the rights to Geno. In more recent time, however, there is a Geno costume available for Mii's, but still no sign of him joining the official roster. Considering that we now have 4 Square Enix reps, we just might get him in the next game. The Bowser Room. The Bowser Room is a rumored hidden room in Peach's castle in Super Mario 64. The room features a white tiled floor with grayish-white walls, and a close-up picture of Bowser in the middle of one of the walls. Found in certain copies of Super Mario 64, players have discovered multiple unique versions of the Bowser Room, some featuring a different picture of Bowser on the wall, some containing Bowser himself, and many more, I'm sure. The popular image for the Bowser Room was reportedly created by YouTuber Oni Plays. However, many believe the image is simply a coincidence that happens to look similar to the Bowser Room that appears in certain copies of Super Mario 64. What copies may those be? Well,
more on that later.
Super Mario FX. Super Mario FX was an unofficial title given to a potential 3D Mario game that Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto conceptualized during the development of the original Star Fox on Super Nintendo. After seeing what could be done with 3D models using the Super FX chip in Star Fox, Miyamoto imagined what kind of worlds he would be able to make, featuring Mario. Multiple early projects were attempted, but were limited due to lack of processing power from the Super Nintendo, even with the added Super FX chip on the cartridge. This project would eventually be put on hold due to these technological limitations, and would be fully realized in Super Mario 64. Now, it's worth noting that the Super FX chip, while in development, had two code names. One was Super Mario FX, and the other was simply Mario, Mario being a backronym for mathematical, Argonaut, rotation, input, output. So, whether this point is referring to the potential game, or the Super FX chip's code name, both are here, just in case. Oh, there's also a creepypasta called Super Mario FX, but we have a lot more to cover, so let's continue. Pikachu hates Sony. Hey You Pikachu was a very strange game when it came out. It sort of worked like a console version of a Tamagotchi or other virtual pet, in the sense that all you really do is take care of a Pikachu, but there is a little bit of story as well. The unique aspect of this game that separates it from every other game in the Nintendo 64 library is that you use a microphone plugged into the Nintendo 64 console to talk to Pikachu. The game reportedly has a 256-word database that the voice recognition unit can detect and use to interact with the game. Among these words, it was reported that certain words made Pikachu upset. Many rumors circulated that if you were to say Sony or PlayStation into the microphone, Pikachu would become angry with the player, though this has been stated to be untrue, as these words aren't in the library of pre-chosen words or phrases that the game can recognize. There is a possibility, however, that when some people say Sony or PlayStation, the game thinks they're saying something else, and Pikachu responds accordingly. So I think this is just a false positive. Or maybe Pikachu really does just hate Sony. Nintendo On. The Nintendo On was a rumored video game console that was reportedly in the development stages back in 2005. During this time, Nintendo's upcoming console that would eventually be released as the Wii was going by another name, Nintendo Revolution. After Nintendo's E3 presentation that year, a video would start circulating online about something that no one keeping close eyes on the presentation noticed: a leak for an upcoming console called Nintendo On. Nintendo On was going to be a virtual reality-centered game system with a console and headset that would put you in the games in ways the Virtual Boy could only dream of. Unfortunately, this was all a hoax made by Pablo Belmonte, our good friend who created the Super Mario Galaxy DS hoax that we talked about a few layers up. SS Anne returns. One of the reasons why the truck was so mysterious in Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow was because of the very specific step it takes to see it. Not that it's entirely unlikely that you could do this by accident, but if you white out on the SS Anne after obtaining Cut, you have no reason to go back onto the ship, and no reason to leave the ship normally. Leaving the ship is what triggers the cutscene in which the ship departs, which, from this point, you can never board the ship again, or go past the guard who checks your ticket initially. This guard mentions one thing, however, and that is that the ship returns to Vermilion once per year. This has, of course, brought many gamers to find a way to make a year of time pass within the game, even though, of course, time isn't kept in Pokemon games until Gen 2. Either way, gamers would still try to make the ship come back in a year's time, and one of the most ridiculous methods of forcing the ship to return is to beat the Elite Four 365 times. Upon doing this, the ship would come back, and in some schoolyard rumors, this was what was required in order to make Mew appear at the truck, as a way to dismiss why Mew wasn't there when people did the whiteout method. Another benefit this would have is apparently the opponents on the SS Anne would be much more difficult, and there would even be another rival fight with his team maxed, among new items to collect and other things. I honestly would be very impressed if anyone actually beat the Elite Four 365 times, but even so, there is no code in the game signifying another rival fight, or any opponents on the SS Anne having Pokemon at a higher level than when you initially fought them. So, as it stands, this is another playground rumor. Chorus Kids in Smash 4. The Chorus Kids are characters featured in the Rhythm Heaven series, which, as its title implies, is a rhythm game developed by Nintendo. With its first title appearing on the DS in 2008, the series has spawned 2 sequels, one on the Wii and the other on the 3DS. With this being a first-party game, though a less popular one, the fans of the game of course pushed for their inclusion in Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS during its development. The Chorus Kids would appear on many Smash fans' radars during 2013 and early 2014, when Sal Romano of the gaming website Gamatsu successfully predicted many characters before their reveals, reportedly with the help of an anonymous tipster. Before the Nintendo Direct of April 8, 2014, the tipster reportedly sent Romano an email stating that Shulk, Palutena, Chrom, and the Chorus Kids from Rhythm Heaven would be among the new characters added to the game. As time went on and Smash 4 would eventually come out, all but 2 of Romano's predictions would be right, with only Chrom and the Chorus Kids not making the cut. As of Smash Ultimate, now only the Chorus Kids are missing from the list. Many people disregarded Romano's predictions as luck. Some believe he legitimately had inside sources, as it turns out Chrom was heavily planned to be playable in Smash 4, and the Chorus Kids have files within Smash 4's game data, suggesting they potentially were going to be included. So it all looks quite legitimate, but to this day, no one really knows for sure how he went about obtaining the information he had, or if it was all luck. Ocarina of Time Desert Pyramid. Several secret dungeons have been rumored to exist in Ocarina of Time over the years, from the Sky Temple to the Light Temple, to a pyramid in the middle of the Haunted Wastelands. The rumor goes that if you play the Song of Storms at a specific location in the Haunted Wasteland, in the distance, you'll see lightning strike the top of a pyramid, which you'd then be able to make your way to. Normally when Link wanders out of bounds in the Haunted Wastelands, you'll be brought back to the entrance. By my assumption, if this rumor was true, then by playing the Song of Storms, this created a path directly to the pyramid to be used. Well, the strange thing about this one is that there is a micro-truth to this point. There is indeed something out in the distance that could resemble a pyramid, though it can only be reached with a cheating device like a Game Shark. Doing so will reveal that it's nothing more than a flat 2D rock surface texture, and is really there only for part of the distant scenery. Though, from the right angle it could resemble a pyramid, so it's an easy misidentification. Chris Houlihan Room. One of the most popular secrets of The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past is the enigmatic Chris Houlihan Room. Before we get into it, let's talk about the history. Back in 1990, in the 16th issue of Nintendo Power, there was a contest in which contestants were tasked with taking a photo of an encounter with Warmech in the first Final Fantasy game on NES. The reason for such a specific challenge is because triggering an encounter with Warmech is extremely rare, having only a 3 in 64 chance of appearing each time your party enters a random battle, and can only be encountered on the bridge in the Flying Fortress, right outside the boss room. Those who successfully did this and sent their photo to Nintendo Power would then be entered into a drawing to have their name put into an upcoming Nintendo game. That game ended up being A Link to the Past, and that winner ended up being Chris Houlihan. As for the room itself, rumors of its existence spread in the mid-90s, shortly after the release of the game, though reaching the room was something of a mystery, though in more recent years, the method of reaching it is now known. The room is actually a debug room, and can only be accessed by tricking the game into an error state. From my understanding, the way this works is you must position Link at one of the 2 lowest possible pixels on the screen, usually by using a bomb with a shield to force Link downward, then perform a dash with the Pegasus boots downwards to the next screen. This, for whatever reason, confuses the game in regards to Link's Y coordinate in relation to the map. After doing this, simply fall down any hole, be it the one outside the castle that leads to the dungeon, or any like it, specifically from the south side of the hole, and you'll find yourself in the Chris Houlihan Room. This room contains 45 blue rupees and a special message from Chris Houlihan. In the Japanese version of the game, this room is simply referred to as a secret room, with no mention of Chris Houlihan. Now for the real mystery. Who exactly is Chris Houlihan? Oddly enough, no one knows, and no one has ever come forward to claim to be the legendary Chris Houlihan, or at least no one with proof or a passable story to prove they are Chris Houlihan. so we may never know who the Chris is behind the room. Splash one-hit KO chance. I remember hearing a lot about this one as a kid. Among all the Pokemon in Generation 1, one Pokemon can start so useless only to become a force to be reckoned with. That Pokemon, of course, being Magikarp. Magikarp will only ever know the attack Splash, and can learn Tackle upon reaching level 15. But before this point, your only hope is to throw him out into battle, then switch him out for a more capable Pokemon for him to leech some of that experience up until being able to fend for himself. Being the only Pokemon in the game to know the move Splash, and everyone being aware of its uselessness, this move was a prime candidate for some rumors. The one I personally remember hearing the most about was that if you had used Splash during a battle that you entered while in the water, or while fishing, it had a chance to one-hit KO the enemy Pokemon. Others stated that this chance existed even on land, and that the chance of a successful hit was incredibly rare. Well, thanks to the ROM editing and hacking of the 2000s, we now know that Splash can't and won't ever hit anything, as it's programmed to simply do as it always has. Absolutely nothing. Super Mario Bros. Chocolate Factory. From the Minus World to the Infinite Lives glitch to jumping over the flagpole, we now have another rumor that came from the early 90s and confused many gamers, and sent them on a wild goose chase across the Mushroom Kingdom. It all started with a simple book, published in 1991, called How to Win at Nintendo Games 4, written by Jeff Rovin. As the claims online go, Jeff mentions a rumor he heard about a secret chocolate factory level within the first Super Mario Bros. Game. Even though Jeff stated this to be a rumor, the fact that it was included in the book meant that players went crazy trying to find it, talking about it amongst friends, and thus spreading the rumor further. It's been suggested that this was either put in the book as a joke, which I seriously doubt because I would assume anyone wanting credibility for their guides in a video game guidebook wouldn't want to fool anyone into doing something incorrectly, or that he put it in the book to catch people plagiarizing his work, which again, I don't believe to be the case at all. Many videos and websites online that recount this claim say it as if Jeff himself is saying that he heard the rumor of a chocolate factory level. However, this doesn't seem to be the case. So I looked into it, and on page 230 of his How to Win at Nintendo Games 4, he specifically says that reader Connie Minyard submitted a guide on how they accessed the Minus World, and also reported hearing of a chocolate factory hidden in the game. Now, whether or not the whole thing about Connie Minyard actually submitting this claim was legitimate, or wasn't just Jeff Rovin making it up, is, of course, entirely up in the air. No one can ever say for certain, but he does present it as if it was submitted by a reader, and not his own personal theory based off something he heard or thought may actually be true. It's pretty evident reading it that he's just relaying information given to him by a reader, and in 1991, again, who's to say for sure? From what I've read in his guides in my short time going through them, in his segments that are specifically his guides, they all seem accurate and informative. I'd also like to point out, this mention of a chocolate factory level is not in the main guide segment for Super Mario Bros., but in an additional section in the back of the book, so I don't think it's as misleading as originally thought. Oh, and before we move on, yeah, there is no chocolate factory level. Cheetah Men 2 Hidden Levels. Cheetah Men was a disaster of a game that was included as the centerpiece of the compilation game cartridge Action 52 for the NES and Sega Genesis, released in 1991. The game had a suggested retail price of $199, and this collection is definitely quantity over quality. All of the games had their fair share of glitches, and some barely even ran at all. You'd think this would discourage anyone from continuing work on such a project, but instead, work on Cheetah Men 2 started right away. In the middle of development, the company that created Action 52 and Cheetah Men, called Active Enterprises, went under, and Cheetah Men 2 would never be released. 5 years later, in 1996, the story goes that someone came across boxes of over 1,000 copies of Cheetah Men 2 in storage, and slowly, the cartridges started to make their way out to collectors through popular online retailers like eBay. Much like the first Cheetah Men game, Cheetah Men 2 is a complete mess, full of bugs and glitches, including one that causes the game to completely freeze after defeating the level 4 boss. Now, this is where the hidden levels come in. Reportedly, if you rapidly turn your NES on and off, there's a small chance that you can actually force the game to boot starting from the 5th stage, allowing you to complete the game. This rumor is actually completely true, and you can in fact force the game to start at level 5 with enough patience. Around 2013 or so, a Kickstarter was started by Greg Pobich, one of the founders of Active Enterprises, to release Cheetah Men 2 officially with all of its bugs and glitches fixed. And from what I've read online, it appears as if the goal was reached and the game was made, and you can even still buy a copy on the Cheetah Men website. Who are you running from? In 1998, Nintendo released the Game Boy Camera, a cartridge with a camera on top that can be rotated and used to take monochromatic pictures right on your Game Boy. The camera features multiple options including various filter effects, multiple minigames, and even a built-in chiptune maker, which I actually never knew about despite owning a Game Boy Camera. Well, anyway, the Game Boy Camera had some strange stuff on it, but one of the strangest things came in the menus. Upon turning on the Game Boy, you'd be greeted with 3 options: shoot, view, or play. By going to shoot, you'd bring up a submenu that now has multiple options, those being shoot, items, magic, check, and run. Clicking run has the potential for multiple things to happen. The most tame being a picture of Africa, with the words "You are now crossing the equator, Jambo Nintendo." Why this exists at all is beyond me, a very random inclusion. However, this isn't even the worst of it. If you keep clicking on the run option repeatedly, you may eventually find yourself facing a rather unsettling image with the text, "Who are you running from?" written above it. There are actually 3 unique faces that can appear here, all 3 being quite creepy in appearance, and all 3 with the words, "Who are you running from?" above them. These photos can be encountered by other means, such as trying to view a slideshow when no images are in memory, among other ways. One of the main mysteries of these images is, who exactly are the people in them and why are they made so creepy? Well, unfortunately Nintendo has never commented on the matter, so to this day they're still a mystery and will continue to hold a place in all of our nightmares. Ghost of Misery Meyer. Yet another myth from A Link to the Past, however, this one being much less known about nowadays, centers around the location of the 6th dungeon called the Swamp of Evil in the Dark World. The location is often called Misery Meyer, but that's actually the name of the dungeon itself. Either way, this rainy swamp holds a very strange mystery that has perplexed gamers for decades. Reportedly, if you go to the Swamp of Evil, specifically the spot just east of the 6th teleport location's Dark World portal, then walk east down the hill and use the Bombos medallion, you'll kill an invisible enemy. This enemy has some very bizarre properties to it that almost have it come off as a glitch in the game. For example, if you use the Cane of Samaria and hit the invisible enemy with it and continue spamming it, your magic meter will freak out for some reason. It's actually been found that there are more than one of these invisible entities. At least 3 of them seem to exist around the swamp area, and all trigger the same interesting glitches. As I mentioned, this strange anomaly was a mystery to many gamers in the early 90s, until finally in the mid-2000s, when using emulators and ROMs became more widespread, this mystery was finally able to be looked into under a microscope, and what was found was interesting. As it turns out, the enemies in these locations are meant to be Fireball Zoras, and Fireball Zoras are enemies that only appear in deep water, which isn't the case for our not-so-ghostly enemies, as the 3 spots that they spawn in are all in shallow water. There are 2 Fireball Zoras that spawn in this area correctly, so it appears as if these enemies were just placed here by accident and never moved, thus creating the famous ghosts that we know today. Every copy of Super Mario 64 is personalized. Super Mario 64 is a game cherished by many. Being a launch title for the Nintendo 64 made it a first game for many who were born in the early 90s, or at the very least, a memorable game that many experienced. This made it the topic of many schoolyard conversations, and would hold a place in our hearts for years after. With the popularity of the internet skyrocketing in the years after the release of Super Mario 64, many sites were created for gamers to talk about their experiences with different games, and due to the overwhelming nostalgia factor of Super Mario 64, many would recount their adventures within the game. But that's where something interesting started to happen. One may recount their experience of needing to grab onto Unagi the eel's tail in order to obtain the star. Another would say that they were able to access a basement level lower than the first floor basement. Many would claim to remember being able to access stages that others don't recall at all. These many occurrences would lead many to believe that Super Mario 64 has a personalization AI chip within the game. The story goes that reportedly all copies of the game have this AI, but their level of influence on the game isn't always as high as it may be on another copy. This also means that it only appears on cartridges, not on ROMs, so playing on emulator would not bring about any personalization qualities. Whether this is real or not has been heavily debated. The truth? Honestly, I think it's safe to say that the whole idea of personalization AI being in Super Mario 64 is 100% entirely. And really, that's how I feel in regards to the whole personalization AI in Super Mario 64. Slamfest 99. Slamfest 99 was a Super Smash Bros. Event that took place at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas, Nevada on April 24th, 1999, and was put on to promote the upcoming release of Super Smash Bros. In North America, set to release 2 days after this event. Similarly to the Super Smash Bros. Commercial with the costumed mascot versions of Mario, Donkey Kong, Pikachu, and Yoshi beating each other up, the event featured a 2-on-2 wrestling match between the same four, Mario and Yoshi against Donkey Kong and Pikachu. And yes, these were the exact same costumes used in that commercial. Reportedly, this event was live streamed, which is kind of amazing considering how poor internet speeds were in 1999, but unfortunately it seems no recordings seem to exist, making it a case of lost media. As of this video, only a few screenshots as well as the original website advertising the event seem to survive. There are also photos of a Donkey Kong plush that someone received from the event alongside their ticket, which is a pretty amazing collectible. Hopefully someday this piece of lost media will once again grace our screens. Creepy Castle, Unused Pillar. For whatever reason, a game that always seems to get overshadowed by many other games than the Nintendo 64 library is Donkey Kong 64. I guess I can't really say much, however, because I myself didn't own it, and neither did anyone else I knew, so I never had any experience with this game growing up. Even outside my own experience, it appears as if the game has far fewer hoaxes and rumors surrounding it than many other first-party Nintendo 64 games. But it does have one interesting mystery, or at the very least, one that appears on this Iceberg. So let's get to it. In the Creepy Castle stage, while playing as Tiny Kong, if you use the banana port pad in the ballroom, then use the banana port pad that's located behind the small building, you'll be transported into a room with a small stone pillar, with nothing but a lone banana balloon floating around it. This pillar did spark many rumors among those who played Donkey Kong 64, mostly focusing on finding potential uses or reasoning behind its existence. Some even believe it may be connected to the whole stop and swap thing that we previously discussed, which is possible since Donkey Kong 64 was developed by Rare. And within Donkey Kong 64's files, information relating to the ice key that I also previously mentioned is found. But whether or not that has anything to do with the pillar is just speculation, of course. Rare developers have gone on record stating that the pillar at one point did have a purpose, but this was scrapped mid-development, but what exactly that purpose was remains unknown. GoldenEye Citadel. In the early days of data mining, those who took a deeper look into GoldenEye would find unused music tracks, textures, and the usual leftover scraps that are often included on the final release of finished video games. However, among the list of levels, one stood out as it wasn't among the levels in either the single player or multiplayer of the game, that being Citadel.
This simple find eventually made its rounds by word of mouth, leading more and more people to know of the Citadel stage and speculate on how to gain access to this elusive level. Eventually, it was discovered that nothing more than a GameShark code would give you access to the Citadel, though it's really quite underwhelming. None of the ramps work, and you're able to walk through all the walls in the stage due to the collision file used being outdated to the rest of the game. The GameShark code also only works when loading the cradle level of the single player, so enemies from this stage, as well as the turrets that are present within Cradle, get loaded in as well. It's really quite a mess. As it turns out, Citadel was originally nothing more than a, quote, very rough test level designed during the early stages of multiplayer mode. So, it seems as if the level was never planned to appear in the final game. After the discovery of the stage by Christian Burgess, who would be the one to share the GameShark code needed to access the stage, programmer Noah Granith would go on a mission to fix all of Citadel's collision problems and make it fully playable, which it now is today through custom ROMs. NES Godzilla. NES Godzilla is a creepypasta known for its length, having multiple chapters, each being about as long as some creepypasta are on their own, and using many images demonstrating the glitches and odd occurrences that the narrator is talking about as the story goes on. Which is nice because it adds a bit more realism and allows the reader to really see what the narrator is referring to, especially if they've never played the game before. The story is about our narrator, Zack, playing a copy of Godzilla Monster of Monsters that starts acting strangely and features characters that weren't in the original release of the game. This initially leads Zack to believe that the game may be a prototype. However, as the story progresses, Zack finds himself being stalked by an entity within the game, and maybe in the real world too. The creepypasta was originally written and posted on the website bogleech.com's forums by user CosbyDaff, making it one of the few examples of creepypasta where we actually know the author. White Hand. Lavender Town in Pokemon Red and Blue spawned many creepy myths and mysteries back in the day, which is fitting given that it's the home of the Pokemon graveyard, and just has an overall creepy vibe to it. One NPC in Lavender Town will ask you if you believe in ghosts. If you answer no, they'll laugh and say, "I guess not, that white hand on your shoulder, it's not real." The White Hand also makes an appearance in the Pokemon Origins anime while Red is talking to presumably this same NPC. There's more to say about White Hand, but it's associated with the next point, so let's continue there. Buried Alive. Buried Alive is a creepypasta that to my research was written in March of 2010, or at the very least, that's when it started to get noticed. The story goes that the Pokemon Tower in Lavender Town was meant to have a different NPC to face instead of the story about Marowak's ghost that we get in the final versions of Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow. This NPC was known as Buried Alive and acted as a trainer, having two special creatures called White Hands, as well as a Gengar and a Muck. White Hand is exactly as I explained in the previous point. Once you encounter Buried Alive, located at the top of Pokemon Tower, you'll start a battle with it. Since Buried Alive was removed from the game, its encounter was never completed, so defeating it results in the game crashing. However, if you lose, that's where things get interesting. Buried Alive will say, "Finally, fresh meat," followed by dragging the player character into the ground, and a game over screen would then be shown, with the player character being devoured by Buried Alive. So, he's like a zombie, I guess. This creepypasta has all the staples of the early creepypasta cheese, but at least it's self-contained within the game itself. It's the same as I had mentioned with Pokemon Creepy Black, where if Buried Alive were to start appearing in the real world following the narrator, it'd be a bit much, but with it being entirely on the cartridge, it lends itself to being more believable, because anyone could put anything on a ROM cartridge nowadays. Pokemon Fusions. Pokemon Fusions was a popular trend in the early 2010s, but actually started online in 2008 when a message board website called Congregate held a Pokemon Fusion contest, in which contestants would merge Pokemon sprites together and come up with all sorts of crazy combinations. The craze would really blow up when on August 8th, 2010, Alex Onsager released a Pokemon Fusion website in which you can select any two Pokemon from Generation 1 and fuse them together. After this website launched, fusion fan art in the Pokemon community would explode for a short time, spawning lots of amazing fan art and other interesting creations. Super Mario World Laser Suit. In late 2006, a video was uploaded to YouTube showing a secret area being accessed north of the top secret area in Super Mario World. To reach this second secret area, you must use an alternate exit that is claimed to be located in the more well-known top secret area. Once inside the top secret area, go to the 2 item blocks on the right-hand side. If you jump at them correctly while holding up, you'll access a secret warp pipe that will take you to the alternate exit. A new path will be made on the map, going from the top secret area to the island just north of it, with a new location that you can enter. Upon entering this area, there's a tip block that Mario can hit containing a message that states, "Congratulations, you have discovered the hidden laser suit in Super Mario World, Nintendo." And on a platform to the right, you'll pick up the laser suit. The laser suit is sort of like a combination of the cape and the fire flower, except the lasers you shoot travel in a straight path instead of, bouncing around on the floor. I can't seem to find the original upload of this video, so I'm under the impression that it's since been deleted. However, there are a few videos from around the same time, and one of these may just be a re-upload of the original. This was eventually revealed to be a hoax, of course, but a ROM does exist where you can play around with the laser suit, and it's pretty cool, so check that out. Mean Girls DS. Mean Girls is a 2014 comedy film starring Lindsay Lohan as she navigates the social structure of high school life. She eventually gets involved with the popular girls in school, leading to nothing but drama, but yeah, it's a great movie. Check it out if you, for whatever reason, haven't seen it. Oddly enough, 5 years later, a Nintendo DS game based off Mean Girls was set to release. The game was planned to come out in Europe on September 11th, 2009, and in the US it was planned to be released on April 20th, 2010. But the releases were cancelled for unknown reasons, and the game faded away into obscurity. Years later, this game would be brought back into light after the lost media boom of the mid-2010s peaked, with it being one of the more prominent pieces of lost media at the time. Once the notice of this game's missing status started to spread, the search took off. Lost media searchers found that the game had a verified ESRB rating and was even listed on multiple online retailers' websites, however it was no longer available for purchase. Further digging even found some screenshots of the game on an Italian gaming website called multiplayer.it. Searchers even reached out to 505 Games, the developer for the game, however not much was found as they didn't have much else to add besides what was already discovered. To backstep a bit, back when the Mean Girls game was set to release on DS, another game called OMG High School, featuring 3 games based off of the movies Clueless, Pretty in Pink, and Mean Girls, was set to be released on PC. Based off screenshots of the game, it appears as if it isn't related to the Mean Girls game on DS, as the graphics don't line up and the PC version seems to be a bit more of a matching blocks puzzle game as opposed to the multi-minigame focused DS version. Though for a while, this version would muddle the search as being a potential lead. The hunt would stay fairly stagnant until May of 2021 when YouTuber Bobdunga revealed on Twitter that she had come across a ROM of the Mean Girls game. She would eventually go on to do a documentary on these lost games, including the OMG High School 3-pack with, Clueless, Pretty in Pink, and Mean Girls. And she also did a playthrough of the ROM that she had acquired. The ROM, upon her receiving it, was heavily bugged, so with the help of Lost Media Wiki user and programmer Tommy Shadow, they were able to get the game somewhat playable, and a nearly 2-hour-long playthrough of the game is now up on YouTube. Some people are still skeptical, claiming that this could be a game fully created as a hoax, given how simple it is, graphically and gameplay-wise, so who knows for sure. This is currently where the hunt for the game lies, as a physical copy has still yet to be found. I do recommend you check out Bobdunga's video on the Lost Girls games, especially if you like long-format videos like mine, as it's nearly 2 hours long and full of all the details behind the search for the game, as well as some of its mysterious retail history. Zelda 3 Triforce Saga. On October 15th, 2005, a mysterious cartridge would appear on eBay. An NES cartridge with a plain white sticker on it that read, The Legend of Zelda 3, The Triforce Saga, Beta 0.6.24, NTSC version, copyright 1990 Nintendo, with a starting bid of $20. This threw not only the Zelda community, but the retro gaming community into a frenzy. A possible third Zelda game for the NES? It was obviously a test cartridge. What could it be, though? Was one of the sequels originally meant to be on the NES, and this was an early version of that? Maybe it was an early scrapped NES version of A Link to the Past or Link's Awakening? Those rightfully skeptical of the listing asked the seller for more proof, and a photo was taken of the game in an original NES console, with the title screen on the TV, and admittedly, while a bit blurry, it looked pretty good. The listing would end on October 22nd, 2005, selling for close to $3,000 and was won by a user with the username Knight7. The whereabouts of the cartridge are unknown to this day, and those in the retro gaming community dismiss the images, as according to some, beta cartridges can't be played on a normal NES console without the use of a Game Genie, but I personally am not so sure of how true this is because I've seen videos online of people showing off their prototype cartridges and they seem to work just fine. I'm certainly not an expert on the ins and outs of the NES and the way games work on it, however, so who knows. Either way, after the sale and the dismissal of everything as a hoax, it was never really talked about again, and no one knows who made the original listing and, if legitimate, where the cartridge is today. If you like this game, buy it or die. Many games have anti-piracy screens built into them, or other means of detecting whether or not the version of the game you're playing is legitimate. Games that detect any sort of tampering have a variety of ways of responding, from simply showing a screen and not allowing you to play, to messing with gameplay in a variety of ways, based on the game of course. A popular one that floated around the internet for a while focuses on Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. At least, that's what people thought initially. The rumor is that there's an anti-piracy message in the game where the guard outside the SSN will say, "By the way, if you like this game, buy it or die." The validity of this message is highly speculated, and most believe that it comes from poorly dumped ROMs of the games, but not just any version of the games. Only version 1.0 of Fire Red is said to contain this message, so no Leaf Green copies have been reported with this message on it. A website called tcrf.net, TCRF standing for The Cutting Room Floor, is dedicated to unearthing and researching unused and cut content from video games. This site has a page on Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green in which this topic is discussed, with the last post being from 2017, stating what I previously mentioned about the message only being in certain versions of Fire Red, with no further update after this point. Still, this little message is heavily speculated. Whether it was added in by a rogue ROM dumper and spread around the internet, or it's a real message, no one seems to know for certain. No official websites or even Bulbapedia seem to have anything to say about it, however, leading me to believe that it's just a hoax and nothing more. Pokegods. The early days of the Pokemon fandom sparked many insane rumors, and with NPCs telling you that their Raichu evolved, to strange occurrences like Missing No, it's easy to see how so many kids would have believed anything during this time. One rumor, however, stood among the rest. One rumor that spawned multiple rumors from it. As I previously mentioned with Peekaboo, Mew 3, Bill's Secret Garden, and Pallet Fields, all of these rumors link back to the Pokegods. Peekaboo and Mew 3, even Missing No, were considered to be Pokegods, and Bill's Secret Garden as well as Pallet Fields were among the unreachable places where rumors said these Pokegods roamed. Among the Pokegods, we even had Ho-Oh considered to be a Pokegod for a while because of its mysterious appearance in the first episode of the anime, without any given name. And in regards to Mew 3, it was really just Mewtwo in the armor he wore at the beginning of the movie and in one episode of the anime. While Pokegods like Ho-Oh would eventually just become part of the canon, there are of course many that were entirely made up, such as Doomsay and its evolution Doomsday, which had pretty convincing Pokedex entry pictures made for them back in the day, leading even more people to believe in this hoax. Daimonix was said to be an evolution of Onyx, before Steelix was a thing, and actually looked pretty awesome. Flareth is said to be an evolution of Flareon that flies, which is completely ridiculous. I can keep going on, but basically it's just a bunch of made-up Pokemon. There are even a handful of fusion Pokemon made years before the craze, usually combining legendary Pokemon, and since it was Gen 1, we only get a handful to pick from. We get Artizaptress, which is of course Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, but we can go one step further. What about Artizap Mutress? That's right, throwing Mewtwo into the mix. Well anyway, that's basically it for the Pokegods. As time went on, and the internet became more and more capable of weeding out fake Pokemon, among other rumors, it's pretty rare that any such hoaxes get very far in the fandom. New hoaxes live on in the time leading up to a game's release, with false leaks, especially for the starter Pokemon. That happens all the time still. Rainbow Pikmin. Pikmin is an often less talked about first-party Nintendo franchise, and while not obscure by any means, and definitely not unknown, it's easy for people to possibly forget if you ask them to name as many Nintendo first-party franchises as they can. Similarly to F-Zero, the series doesn't receive the most love, though it does at least receive more games. The object of the game is simple. Use Pikmin to complete objectives, and in the first game, there are only 3 different types of Pikmin: red, yellow, and blue. Red Pikmin are fireproof and deal more damage to enemies. Yellow Pikmin can be thrown at a greater distance and height and are immune to electricity and can carry and throw bomb rocks. And lastly, the blue Pikmin can traverse water and are resistant to any types of water damage that may be caused. Later games in the series would add more variety of Pikmin, but our myth comes from the first game, so we'll be focusing on that one. The biggest myth or rumor that spawned from the first Pikmin game was definitely the Rainbow Pikmin, representing the abilities of all 3 Pikmin in one. Multiple methods existed for unlocking these Super Pikmin, varying from beating the game in a short amount of time, beating the game a certain number of times, or throwing yellow Pikmin at the impact site and immediately ending the day upon detonation. If done correctly, reportedly you'd have access to Rainbow Pikmin the next day. Unfortunately, this myth has long since been debunked, and only red, yellow, and blue Pikmin exist in the first game. Not much more to it than that. Missing No in X and Y. As we talked about previously, Missing No is an infamous glitch in Pokemon history. I'd even go so far as to say it's one of the biggest glitches in all of gaming, especially because of its item duplicating benefits. The legend has made its way throughout the Pokemon generations, eventually making its way to Pokemon X and Y. This all spawned from an image that was uploaded to Imager, showing a player outside the boutique couture shop in Lumio City with its door open. And inside, looming in the darkness, was what looked to be the mysterious entity. After analyzing further, as well as looking through all other doors that have dark hallways to look down, this simply appears to be nothing more than a visual oddity, and while the shape is vaguely similar, it's certainly not the lovable mash of pixels, but really, this is a missed opportunity, as this would have been an awesome addition to the game and a nice nod to Missing No without it being a legitimate glitch. 8-bit Mario in Ultimate. In regards to the Super Smash Bros. Series, the fake leak train comes every time a Nintendo Direct or other convention comes around that Nintendo is expected to make announcements at, and similar to the infamous hoaxes of years past, Smash Ultimate was no different in receiving countless convincing fake reveal trailers for fighters that many have demanded to be added over the years. A big one that popped up in December of 2020 was for 8-bit Mario, a variation of Mario that was often requested by fans alongside Paper Mario and other specific eras of Mario, from 16-bit to even his 64 appearance. Reportedly, the original video was uploaded, then deleted, and re-uploaded on Twitter by Timesies? I'm not really sure how to pronounce that, but anyway, this video gained quite a bit of traction and coverage on YouTube and looked pretty awesome. It shows 8-bit Mario flawlessly integrated into the footage with other characters in the Smash roster, as well as multiple costumes that he would have, such as his Mario Maker costume. Eventually, the Twitter user, whose name I'm not sure how to pronounce, eventually tweeted that they found out that a YouTube user named Big Green made the false leak, creating the video themselves. I can't seem to find this YouTube channel, or at the very least, there's a new person on YouTube using the Big Green name, as there's nothing video game related on there. Either way, this is just another rumor in the legacy of Smash character rumors, and fits in rather well. Kirby Red Diamond. Kirby isn't a franchise with very many hoaxes circulating around it, but what it does have is quite interesting, and something that doesn't happen too often, save for a couple cases. In 2001, an eBay listing popped up for a Kirby game on the Game Boy Advance. Considering that there hadn't been a Kirby game on the Game Boy Advance yet, and the market for bootleg Game Boy Advance games wasn't quite as crazy as it had reached on the original Game Boy and Game Boy Color, fans were beyond curious. The listing was even complete in box, and the box looked great. I've seen box art for retro games made in the current decade that look worse than this box made 21 years earlier. Little else outside the single picture of the box was posted on the eBay listing, and before anyone can purchase it, it was removed, only for another listing to show up on Yahoo Auctions that reportedly someone then purchased. Now, hang on, I'm getting conflicting stories in my research. The Video Game Hoaxes wiki gave this information that I just explained. However, on the fan site kirbysrainbowresort.net, I get this story. The game was posted on eBay in June of 2004. Same story though, it had legitimate looking box art and was so convincing many assumed it was a prototype or something of that sort. The starting bid was $12.99 GBP, and even more strange, the seller had a feedback score of over 700, leading to even more validity to the post, and also leading fans to believe the seller simply didn't know what they had, which makes perfect sense. Keep in mind, by the way, that this version of the story is happening after the release of Kirby Nightmare in Dreamland, and while Kirby and the Amazing Mirror came out in Japan in April of 2004, it wouldn't show up in Europe until July, and North America until October. This story also has the listing ending early, without sale, specifically on June 14th, 2004. The day before this, on June 13th, the game was listed on Yahoo Auction with a starting bid at $29.99 AUD and had an additional picture showing the back of the box. Now, this is where the Kirby's Rainbow Resort fansite story differs from the Video Game Hoaxes wiki story. You know, apart from the years that it took place. I'm still not sure why those are different, but anyway. While the story on the wiki states that the Yahoo Auction listing had sold, the story here on Kirby's Rainbow Resort said that it too was cancelled after who I assume is the owner of the site and writer of this article says that they personally asked questions in regards to the game's validity and sent them to the seller on Yahoo Auctions. Strangely, after this happened, the question, which appears publicly on the auctions page so that people who may have a similar question can see how the seller responded, was deleted, along with the picture of the back of the box, and shortly after this, the listing was taken down entirely. Now, because of the claim of personal involvement and some other information, like the copyright years listed on the box lining up with the years listed in the Kirby's Rainbow Resort story, I'm more inclined to believe that side of this whole thing. Not to mention, the game features images from Nightmare in Dreamland on the back of the box, as well as clearly stating that multiplayer is available if all 4 players have a Nightmare in Dreamland game pack, which is hilarious. Sorry this entry was so long. I originally was going to delete the initial findings I had found on the Video Game Hoaxes wiki, but I think it's important to include to show how easily this information can get messed up, which ultimately can create whole new rumors. It could also lead to information being falsely spread around. While I said I'm more inclined to believe the Kirby's Rainbow Resort story, that doesn't mean I'm 100% right. So if anyone has further information on either direction, let me know, because I'd love to get a closer look at the full story. Oh, and by the way, what is Kirby Red Diamond? It's just a poorly emulated version of Kirby's Adventure for the NES on the Game Boy Advance. And it's really bad. Fado's House. Fado is a reoccurring character name in The Legend of Zelda, though the characters with the same name don't often share appearances. When I think Fado, I think of the Kokiri girl in Ocarina of Time, but this point is referring to Fado from Twilight Princess, who's the complete opposite. In Twilight Princess, Fado resides in Ordon Village, and for whatever reason, his house is always locked. You may think eventually the house will become unlocked, or maybe at some point Fado will be inside, or you'll find a key, but throughout the entire game, the house remains locked. A glitch has been found that sort of lets you enter the house. If you equip the Super Claw Shot and aim it between the door and the door frame just right, you can clip through and find yourself inside. However, there's nothing in there, just a cramped blank space that leads nowhere, and the door is still locked. That's right, this glitch will actually trap you inside, and there's no way out except resetting the game. The game's director, Eiji Onuma, has stated that the room was never completed, so the door remained locked since it didn't have any importance to the story or objectives within the game. The Chicago Ghost. Perfect Dark was a game created by Rare and released on the Nintendo 64 on May 22, 2000. The game is often referred to as a spiritual successor to GoldenEye, despite, GoldenEye getting a legitimate sequel in the form of The World Is Not Enough 5 months later on October 17th, 2000, but I think the unique story and weapons of Perfect Dark is what really sold people on it. I remember some friends on the street I grew up on being very into this game and playing it non-stop for quite a few months. This game didn't spawn many myths or playground legends, but it does have one, that being the Chicago Ghost. This rumor would spread around mildly throughout the years, but pick up more traction in 2016 when a Reddit post by a now deleted account recounts their story of encountering this mysterious entity as a child, and their dive into discovering what's behind it while updating their Reddit post. But let's take a step back for a moment. What exactly is the Chicago Ghost? In the Chicago level of Perfect Dark, you'll reach a point where you come across a gentleman's club called Punk Pond. The door to this club is generally closed, however, in the story given by the Redditor, during one attempt at playing through the level after hearing gunfire coming from the stairway leading to the gentleman's club, they went to investigate and found the door open with multiple guards dead. The Redditor entered the now opened room, only to be killed by an unknown entity, this entity being the infamous Chicago Ghost. According to those who played the game and had internet access during the time of its release, they claimed that this ghost was talked about fairly often online, but it was often dismissed as a hoax. Unfortunately, despite countless tests and even talking with developers of the game, little has been found to confirm or deny this mysterious entity's appearance. Some believe that it's a rare glitch in regards to something called arbitrary code execution, which I honestly don't fully understand, but I'm gonna try my best to explain. If I'm understanding right, basically by executing certain inputs in a game, you can force the game to do all sorts of things. Spawn items, have a door take you to a different location, and in this case, spawn an enemy, which I believe is what some people think is happening here. Again, arbitrary code execution is something I know nothing about, so if I'm wrong, please correct me, because I'm leaving it at that, because if I go any further, if I hadn't yet said anything wrong, I probably will soon, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Anyway, with that, this happens so rarely because a set order of things must occur in order for this invisible enemy to spawn, and what those things are is unknown, if that's even how it happens at all. And that's about where this rumor stands at the moment, as there doesn't seem to be any further development, so as it stands, the Chicago Ghost will continue to be a mystery. Yoshi and Super Mario Bros. From the research I've gathered, this point doesn't refer to a myth or rumor in any way, but instead is more along the lines of cut content. As we all know, Yoshi made his debut in Super Mario World in 1990 and would go on to appear in many titles throughout the years. However, the idea of including a dinosaur companion to Mario would be tossed around in the development stages of Super Mario Bros. For the Famicom, which would be released in Japan in 1985. You can see some early designs of what Yoshi would eventually become in the 1984 Famicom game Devil World, in which a dragon has some features that would go on to appear on Yoshi. Miyamoto would put off giving Mario a dinosaur companion through the NES era due to console limitations until the increased processing power of the Super Nintendo finally allowed him to pull it off. And from then on, Yoshi became a mainstay in the Mario universe, even getting quite a few of his own games to himself, like Super Mario World 2 Yoshi's Island, Yoshi's Story, and even the aptly titled Yoshi for the NES. So, while Yoshi was at least a concept for Super Mario Bros., there aren't necessarily any myths or rumors about him appearing in the game, as he didn't exist until 5 years after the initial game's release. But that doesn't mean I don't doubt some kid in 1990 tried telling kids around the playground that he found Yoshi in the original Super Mario Bros. You just can't trust kids, I guess. Yeah Yeah Beavis 1. In the 80s and 90s, magazines were a source of so much information. Nintendo Power, in its very first issue alone, had a complete map to The Legend of Zelda, as well as the password to skip to the second quest, a complete map of Metroid, the Contra Code, the unlimited 1-up trick in Super Mario, and countless other helpful hints. Game magazines, however, also came with their own mysteries that would perplex gamers for years. In June of 1989, an issue of Video Games and Computer Entertainment magazine would hit shelves, and inside, a mail-order video game service called Play It Again would advertise games that you could order through them to be delivered. Among these games, one stood out, that being a game by the title Yeah Yeah Beavis 1. A game no one had heard of then, and one that nobody seems to know anything about to this day. This game would continue to appear in the July, August, and September issues as well, still being available in the Play It Again service. The next reported appearance of this game was in October, once again being advertised by another mail-in order video game service called Funko. Many theories in regards to what this game was or why it was on the list have surfaced. Some believe it to be a placeholder name for a game that wasn't out yet, some believe it to be a copyright trap, meant to be a standout way of indicating if another game service copied their list. In 2021, a search held by the Lost Media Wiki commenced, and after reaching out to multiple people who originally worked with Funko and Play It Again, they managed to get a hold of Neil Levin. Lost Media Wiki forum user Stinter Galactic interviewed him, where Neil stated that it was often common business practice to put fake things in catalogs in order to act as a copyright track, which makes the case that people originally claimed as it being so much stronger. As of right now, this is where this mystery lies, and it seems to lay dormant once again, until possibly the next generation of Lost Media Wiki users decide to continue the search, or a mysterious cartridge with no label on it is found at a yard sale. Chunky Kong and Smash 4 Assist Trophy. At E3 2014, Nintendo and IGN featured a 25-minute demo of gameplay, showing off the new characters, multiple new game modes, and more. It was also announced at this event that select Best Buy stores would have a playable demo that fans can go to in order to check out the game themselves. A rumor then started shortly after, in which Smashboards user WildVine47 claimed to have seen Chunky Kong as an assist trophy while playing the game at the Best Buy in Schaumburg, Illinois. They went on to explain that Chunky would ground pound the stage, followed by bananas falling from the sky that would then damage opponents. This rumor was questionable, as during the time of its conception, no one had full access to the game to really check for sure if that's the case, and to my understanding anyway, Item Switch wasn't available during the demo, so the items you got during a match were your only way of knowing what was actually in the game. Of course, this would all eventually be confirmed as false with the release of Super Smash Bros. For Wii U and 3DS, when Chunky Kong wasn't found amongst the other assist trophies. In December of 2014, Wildvine would admit on a forum post that he had fabricated the hoax, with reasons being to see which fake leaks would include it, and of course for personal amusement, as I'm sure most hoaxes are born. All-Stars Super Mario Bros. 1 Underground Subliminal Message. Alright, this one is really weird and really short because I honestly don't know what to make of it, so I dug around quite a bit because I thought I may be missing something, but the only thing that comes up when I search for anything relating to subliminal messages and Super Mario All-Stars is this YouTube video showing, well, I don't really know what it's showing. The video shows Mario entering stage 1-2, and upon taking a few steps, the uploader stops the video and asks if you saw it. They then go back to the video and highlight 2 of the moss growths in the background, and then the video just ends. I really don't know what to be looking for here, and the comments don't help much, so if anyone knows, please let me know. Please comment or something. I've watched the video over 20 times trying to see if there was something I'm missing, but I really just don't see anything to this, so please let me know if you know what this is about, because I am stumped. Catastrophe Crow. Catastrophe Crow is an ARG created by Adam Butcher, who created their YouTube channel in May of 2006. An ARG is basically a creepypasta, but with clues and hidden messages usually within the videos. Even Ben Drowned is considered an ARG nowadays, but to me, they'll always just be creepypastas. Anyway, back to Catastrophe Crow, or as it's often referred to as, Crow64. Adam would upload a variety of videos on this channel throughout the years until October of 2020 when he would upload the video, What Happened to Crow64. The video covers the troubled development of a Nintendo 64 game called Crow64 that was shown off at the 1997 Space World Trade Show. The game was being developed by a company called Opus Interactive and was founded by a man named Manfred Lorenz, who was also the head developer of Crow64, which was considered to be his personal pet project, and a game that was very important to him, as the game's titular character was based off a drawing his daughter had made. Despite initially stating a release year of 1999, the game would continuously be pushed back, and as time went on, staff noticed Manfred's home life was falling apart. By 2001, the game had gone over budget, to the point where Manfred laid off his entire staff and went ahead working on Crow64 alone. Later on that same year, Manfred would vanish. All equipment, workstations, hard drives, and computers were cleared out of what used to be Opus Interactive's headquarters, and checking his house would lead to even more confusion. It turns out that Manfred wasn't there. His boat was missing, and his wife was later found to have left the country 6 months prior. Eventually, Manfred's boat would be found abandoned in the ocean with no sign of him, except for a note to his wife. Now, that's where the whole backstory ends and the gameplay stuff begins. Adam Butcher claims he found a development cartridge of Crow64 online, which inspired him to make the documentary, and then he'd proceed to upload gameplay footage of himself playing through the game. Crow64 features many clues, messages, hints, and more that unveil much more behind the scenes of Manfred, his home life, his mysterious disappearance, his relationship with his daughter, and much more. The ARG seemingly ended in August of 2021, so if you're interested in getting the whole story, YouTuber Nightmind does a great video going in depth with it, and this video is getting quite long as it is, and we still got quite a few left, so on to the next. Nintendo DS Hyper. This is a really short one. Basically, in 2008, Japanese gaming magazine Famitsu's publisher, Hidekazu Hamamura, speculated that Nintendo would be announcing yet another new version of the DS at E3 that year. The original DS came out in 2004, with the Game Boy Micro coming out in 2005. The DS Lite came out in 2006, and there were no new handhelds in 2007, leading to this prediction, and they were right, as the Nintendo DSi would be announced and released in Japan in November of 2008. Now, what does this have to do with the Nintendo DS Hyper? Well, in response, or rather in the same light as the prediction, many others assumed a new handheld would be announced as well, given, as I mentioned previously, Nintendo's track record of releasing systems in the past. And this ridiculous mock-up of what is referred to as a Nintendo DS Hyper was created. The image is credited to the website Gizmodo, though I can only find it in articles talking about the Famitsu prediction on Yahoo, Engadget, and a site called Infendo. There is no reference to it anywhere on the Gizmodo website from what I was able to find, but it's clearly nothing more than an artist's joke mock-up in response to hearing of yet another iteration of the DS getting made. And the DSi is only the third version. If only they knew there would be 7 more unique variations of the DS console coming in the following years. Pokemon Yellow box message. Alright, this is a weird one, and the only information I can find on this story is from a YouTuber named Tara A. Devlin, and I can't find the story anywhere else online, so I'm gonna have to go off what this video says. Basically, a user on the Japanese anonymous image site 2chan tells their story of a copy of Pokemon Yellow that they bought secondhand, and go on to explain how they found writing inside the box. This writing said things like, "Pikachu, I no longer have to go to school. Pikachu, do you know what our trip is all about? Pikachu, you've killed so many people. Pikachu, you were laughing when I couldn't see you. Pikachu, this is the end of our trip. It's really the end. Pikachu, I'm going to school now. And lastly, Pikachu, you should kill the people you love." Yeah. So, this was originally posted on 2chan on January 3rd, 2008, and would apparently spread around. I assume it's probably much more known in Japan, and I've never heard of it before, and I can't find anything about it when doing research, and this video is the only information I have in regards to the story at all, so I'm not even sure if there's much more to this. It could all just be a one-off story, who really knows? As the story spread around on 2chan, it would eventually be said that Pikachu didn't just kill people, he ate them, and would grow larger and larger the more he did. According to the video, this legend grew through its retellings on 2chan throughout the years. I find this really strange though, because despite all of my years being obsessed with creepypastas and scary internet stories, especially those around video games, I haven't heard of this at all. And it's made even more strange when the narrator at the end of the video says it doesn't take long for this story to be brought up when discussing Pokemon Urban Legends, but again, I've never heard of it. If you have, please comment or something, because I tried doing research and I could find nothing on Google in regards to this story at all. Maybe it's just that obscure, or maybe it's a cultural thing that has yet to really cross over into other countries, just waiting to spread like a creepypasta virus. Who knows? Missing No in Pokemon Go. Pokemon Go was an absolute phenomenon when it came out. Never before had I seen so many people out exploring parks, neighborhoods, or shopping centers, all at peace with one another, talking Pokemon, offering advice, working together to take over gyms. It was a time unlike any other, and for those who were around to experience it, I doubt we'll ever have a moment like that again this generation, so I hope you enjoyed it. With even coffee shops and stores offering discounts if you put a lure up near them, everyone was on board with this. It was insane. This many people all gathering around a single game, however, of course, led to hoaxes and rumors being created, and honestly, I'm all for it. A magical time like this calls for a little mystery, even if it ends up not being true. Now, despite rumors of Missing No appearing and simply being very rare, hence why no one had it, some strange glitches did come about through the years that have been documented by players of Pokemon Go. A Reddit post from 2017 by user Ariel Has Fins posted a screenshot in which one of their Rattata was corrupted, showing a very familiar pixelated pattern. Though not entirely resembling Missing No, it was close enough, and with it being a glitch, doesn't that just make it that much more on point? Despite the legitimacy of this as a glitch, it didn't take long for the Photoshop hoaxers to start working their magic, and before we knew it, images were everywhere of Missing No in Pokemon Go, but to this day, Niantic has never put Missing No in the game, though it would be a pretty cool April Fool's Day joke. Nintendo is keeping Mozart alive. Oh man, okay, this one is crazy. Almost as crazy as that one point on the Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask Iceberg I did. You know, about how Majora's Mask is an inspired retelling of the Magic Flute Opera. The opera by Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Okay, wait, no. This has to be a coincidence. Okay, what's the story here? Alright, so this is a whole thing, so strap in. It's kind of a history lesson. Here we go. Basically, research throughout the centuries would lead the Holy Roman Emperor Joseph II to offer Mozart to try the first created Philosopher's Stone, as at this point Mozart's health was beginning to decline, and the Emperor didn't want to be the guinea pig until it was confirmed to work. A year before the stone's completion, Joseph would die and his brother Leopold would take the throne, only to learn of all the research done for the Philosopher's Stone, and Mozart being appointed the one to test it. Assuming it all to be a joke, he allowed Mozart to do so, and it would be successful. As the years passed, Mozart would find himself in Japan after faking his own death. Mozart would eventually meet an entrepreneur named Fusajiro Yamauchi, who began manufacturing decks of Hanafuda playing cards, which the two played often, becoming very close friends over the years. Mozart would eventually tell him his secret, and Yamauchi would believe him and offer him to permanently live at the offices of his newly found company, Nintendo. After Yamauchi's passing, Mozart would continue living in the company's headquarters, and those higher up in the company would all know of the secret that Nintendo had. As Nintendo became a video game company, many references to Mozart would be snuck into games as an homage or as a way for employees to try to reveal the truth. This would be done in pieces of music like Mozart's Eine kleine Nacht music being featured in the original Mario Bros. Arcade game. Another hint is in the name of the legendary birds and the first letters of their name. The M and O in Moltres, the Z in Zapdos, and the A, R, and T from Articuno spelling Mozart. Also, Mario using magic flutes in various games, and once again, of course, Majora's Mask's retelling of the magic flute. There are quite a few more, so if you want to read for yourself, it's just a Google search away. Now that we know Mozart is assisting Koji Kondo, looking back, it's so obvious how the music of Mario and Zelda could be so magical and captivating. Now, it's rare that I do this, but really, that's the end of the iceberg. Layers 7 and 8 are nearly entirely jokes, and while I'm okay with the joke entry every now and then, an entire layer of jokes would just kind of add up time, but to satisfy those that want to know and to keep my word that I'll never skip a point on the iceberg simply because I don't think it should be there or don't agree with it, I'll do a speed run through them, saving the most interesting for last because that one I actually have a lot to talk about. Let's get started. Scrimmy Bingus and the Crungy Spungus. This is a joke game that Vinesauce did a playthrough of for April Fool's Day 2016. Admittedly, I do love the name. Horse Autopsy with Lizzie McGuire. This is actually a fictional game that was used in the creation of a parody Iceberg chart. The game features Lizzie McGuire from the hit Disney Channel series of the same name, performing autopsies on horses. I think. There's no gameplay, so I'm just assuming that's the gist of the game. Hotel Mario Ouija Boss. This is referring to a YouTube video called Hotel Mario Secret Boss Ouija, uploaded by Super Mario 0246 in November of 2010. This video shows gameplay of Hotel Mario for the Philips CDI, in which the player accesses a secret boss fight against Ouija. This Ouija thing was a really big trend in the late 2000s. I actually kind of forgot about it before doing research for this video. Fourth Zelda CDI game. Once again, another YouTube video, this one called the fourth CDI game, The Return to Gamlon. Uploaded to YouTube in March of 2009 by YouTube user I Am The Gang, and it very much follows the YouTube poop format that was popular during the time. Shrek in Smash 4. It's a Shrek meme, simple as that. I don't even have to say anything. There are countless videos that come up on YouTube if you search Shrek in Smash 4, showing various Shrek character reveal trailers. Some of them are actually pretty good. Luigi and Ocarina of Time. While I'm inclined to believe this is a joke given the rest of this layer, there isn't much in regards to Luigi being an Ocarina of Time, outside the Ella's Real 2401 plaque in Dodongo's Cavern, but we all know that's just a reused texture. L is real only in Super Mario 64. Brothers in Harms. So I'm actually kind of annoyed that a point on the joke portion of this iceberg has stumped me. I've been searching for about an hour now and can't find anything in regards to Brothers in Harms and Nintendo. The closest thing I found was a YouTuber named Jag Let's Plays playing through Ocarina of Time, and part 28 of his series is called Brothers in Harms, and from what I can see, nothing notable happens in it outside a standard playthrough. I watched the whole thing just to make sure, so I really don't know. I can find no other connections between Brothers in Harms and Nintendo. Reggie is Gygus. So, there was a YouTube video that's no longer available called Reggie is Gygus. Reggie, of course, being Reggie Fils-Aimé, the president of Nintendo of America from 2006 to 2019, and Gygus, the main antagonist of Earthbound. Since it's not available anymore, I can't really comment on it, as I've never seen it. It was posted on the Earthbound subreddit in 2014, and that's about all I know. Based off comments, it was apparently a pretty funny video. There's another video on YouTube called Reggie Gygus from November of 2008 by YouTube user Crudstuntly, and is pretty much just a warped video of Reggie mixed with Gygus. I also really love the running joke that if you combine Reggie and Gygus' name, you get Reggie Gigas, kind of like the Pokemon. I don't know, I kind of find it funny. Polybius Game & Watch. Polybius is a famous video game urban legend about a game that would subliminally affect players, having addictive qualities, causing nightmares and insomnia, and much more. The game would only be in arcades across Portland, Oregon, and not long after they were first installed, they vanished, leaving us with nothing but this legend. Now, as for the iceberg point, no idea. Nothing comes up from searching for Polybius Game & Watch. Maybe it's trying to suggest that a portable version was made way back when, and now it's floating around somewhere just waiting to be found in an attic or thrift store in the dustbins of obscurity, but I'm really not sure. Luigi in real life. Gotta say, once again, I'm not positive, because there's somehow a lot of videos with this title, and it all focuses around YouTuber Nitro Parkour doing various things in real life while dressed as Luigi. Nothing else comes up when searching through Google, so I'm 99% sure this is it. This channel actually has quite a few of these, among many other videos. 6/23/2401. A quick and easy one. This is referring to the day of the Giga Leak in which the prophecy of 2401 became a reality, as on June 23rd, 2020, exactly 24 years and 1 month after Super Mario 64's release, as well as the L is Real 2401 rumor, it would be confirmed that Luigi was indeed planned for Super Mario 64, and his model would be found within the files discovered in the Giga Leak. My dad works at Nintendo. This is a funny one. Everyone had that kid that told a lie about a video game or having access to a game before it came out because that kid's dad worked at Nintendo or their uncle worked at Nintendo, anything along that line. This was great. I remember a kid in 2nd grade saying that he had Pokemon Black version, which, keep in mind, this was 1998, Black version wasn't on anyone's mind yet, but this kid said he had it because his uncle worked at Nintendo, and so many people believed him. He made up countless fake Pokemon, things that you can do in the game. I specifically remember him mentioning being able to ride a skateboard instead of a bike, which I thought was really cool. Kids will lie about anything, I swear. Nintendo HQ was almost nuked. Alright, now time for the true finale here, and a serious point on the iceberg. Nintendo as a company was founded in 1889 in Kyoto, Japan. The company would start off selling Hanafuda, which is a Japanese card game. The company would continue to do well, even becoming the largest card game company in Japan. They would remain in this business throughout World War II, where Nintendo's home of Kyoto, Japan, would be in the crosshairs of the United States. The United States, in an effort to quickly end the war with Japan, had made 2 atomic bombs and made a list of targets that these bombs would be suitable for. On the list was Hiroshima, Kyoto, Kakura, Tokyo, Yokohama, and Niigata. The United States Secretary of War, Henry Stimson, attempted to persuade President Truman to not target Kyoto, due to its cultural and historical importance, and maybe a bit of personal bias due to he and his wife having their honeymoon in Kyoto. With that, Hiroshima was chosen as the first target, with Kokura being chosen for the second target. And on the day of the second bombing, due to cloud coverage, the plane carrying the atomic bomb would switch course, and Nagasaki would end up being the second target. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that some believe that it was actually American archaeologist and art historian Langdon Warner who pressed so hard to remove Kyoto from the list of targets. With this seemingly simple change of targets, history changed forever. Really, any combination of any of these cities being bombed would have been a tragedy, and it was a tragedy. That doesn't change either way. We can really only look back in retrospect and acknowledge what could have happened and what did happen, and hope that such weapons never get used on anyone ever again. That was a pretty heavy ending, and we got quite deep on this iceberg, so let's make our way back up to the surface. And that wraps up our deep dive on this Nintendo Iceberg. If you stuck around this long, listening to me ramble about these many games from my childhood, thank you. Sorry for the long break between my last video and this one, I really appreciate the patience. Doing research for these videos and writing the scripts is quite a long process. A process I enjoy very much, but a long one nonetheless. If any of you saw the poll I made a month back, or to catch up those who are just curious as to why I haven't uploaded in 4 months, you may be wondering where that 4-hour-long video is that I had mentioned. This is not that video. I'm still writing the script for it, and just an example of how long it's going to be, the script for the video you're currently watching is 62 pages long. I'm already past that on the other Iceberg script and still have 4 layers left to cover, and 164 points. Yeah, that one's going to be incredibly long. That video is much more of a passion project though, and as a hint, it isn't video game related, though some games are mentioned. Maybe you can guess what it is, but I'd like to keep it a surprise for now. I honestly didn't expect this video to be so long. When I was initially searching for an iceberg that I could make a video on to take a break from the other project, I thought this would be the perfect one for an hour or hour and a half long video or so at most, but I ended up having a lot to say about some of the points and just trying to be thorough as best I can. As always, I'd like to thank you, personally, for watching this video, and any of my other videos you may have seen. I hope you enjoy them while gaming, or trying to sleep, or whatever you may be doing while they're on. There are a few YouTube channels that I use specifically to listen to while I clean or work or even drive, and those were my inspiration, so it's quite incredible to hear that many of you do the same for my videos, as that's exactly what I wanted them to be used for. So, once again, I'd like to thank you, and I hope you have a swell day.